Welcome to Table Read Tuesdays, and today we are honored to read a script from our very own Heather Leigh Cameron. So we're reading a new script that has never been performed before, never been read fully before by others. And so I'll introduce our cast and our writer. So Heather Leigh Cameron.
Hi, my name is Heather Leigh Cameron, and I am the writer of Valley of Shadows. I live in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. I'm an actor. I'm a writer / freelance journalist. I am also an independent filmmaker, and I am a family history research student. This story is a very personal story. It is based on real events, and it took place in 2014, but names have been altered. And that's all I'll say for now.
Thank you. I have asked Heather to not say much yet until the after discussion. So if you want to hear more about the story, the background, all the stuff we got wrong, and our impressions beforehand and her correcting us, then come back for the after discussion or stay for the after discussion. And
this is my first time actually having one of my things read. I always tried to meet the deadlines before, but this is the first time I was actually able to do it. So I expect some constructive feedback, and I'm grateful for this chance.
Awesome. And we always say, like, that itself is a huge accomplishment. To finish a script and stuff that you've been trying to work on for a long time, that's a huge accomplishment. And then again, to have the I can't even think of the words right now, but to be able to have someone else read your stuff and listen to it and put yourself out there to receive feedback, that takes a lot of credit too. So,
and I'm grateful to my
Heather.
mother. I'm grateful to my mother, Martha, for having some input on the casting, because I did some and she gave some recommendations, and for her allowing me to tell this story, because, you know, she said it's cool. She didn't look at it for emotional reasons. It's difficult, but she allowed me to tell this personal story. She gave her permission. I love you,
Thank
Mom.
you, Heather's mama.
I love you, Alvin, my stepdad.
Awesome. All right. And then we'll come back to you, Heather, after we read it and after we discuss it a little bit among ourselves first.
Bye, you
and then we'll let
guys.
you know
Have fun.
Proud of you, Heather.
All right. Next, we have Peter Leach. So please introduce yourself. Yeah.
I'm Peter. I am a massage therapist and aspiring voice actor from Calgary. Available on Instagram at Combined Power. Long story. Yeah. Wasn't booked tonight, so here we are.
All right. We're so glad to hear it. And we have Kat. Sorry, I didn't give her a heads up ahead of time that she was next.
Was that me? Sorry, I had someone at the door just a minute ago.
Okay. Oh.
So yeah, I'm Kat Wilson. I am in Gig Harbor, Washington, and I read frequently on with a group called Two Households in Fair Corona. It's a Shakespeare reading group, and that's where you can find me most weekends.
Excellent, excellent. And next we have Erin Lillis.
Hello, I am Erin Lillis. I am a voice actor. You can find me on the podcast, the No Sleep podcast, Calling Darkness, Deconstructive Criticism, amongst other things. And I am going to be playing the character of Heather tonight, disguised as Helen.
Excellent. Can't wait to hear that among all your other stuff. And next we have Roxzane.
Totally not prepared. I was trying to take a screenshot. Hi, I'm Roxzane Armstrong from Central Alberta. Currently listening to a thunderstorm, so hopefully those of us here in good old Red Deer continue to have internet. I am an actor here in Central Alberta. I have just wrapped up recently a theater production and a short film, and, you know, throwing my face out there to do more stuff. And when I'm not doing this, I'm a social marketer for a health and wellness company. So I'm kind of always on social media. You can find me as Roxzane Armstrong on Facebook or Roxzane on Instagram. And that's it. That's me.
Excellent. Sorry, I couldn't see that play, but let us know when the short film is out and where we all can watch it. That's awesome.
We just got accepted for the Got a Minute Film Festival for FAVA this coming spring. So we'll have a short 1-minute version that goes into that festival that I'll be able to share and you can all vote for.
Woo-hoo. Congratulations. Can't wait. All right. And next we have Angel Peterson.
Hi, I'm Angel and we'll be playing Martina Austin. So I'll be Erin's mother. You better behave there, girl. And yeah. I can be found. I guess Instagram's probably a pretty decent. I've started to put up some reels for my work there. So it's Angel CDP. It's just my initials. ANGEL CDP. That's me.
All right. Right. Very nice. Very nice. And we have Vicki Dykes.
Hello, I'm Vicki Dykes. I'm from Central Alberta. I'm an actress. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm YogaGramma7. And I'm on Facebook under the name Vicki Dykes. And along with being busy here on Table Read Tuesdays, I read with the same Shakespeare group with Kat. And actually this weekend, we're going to be doing some shooting in the mountains. I'm very excited about it. My yoga show. So yeah, I'm that's very exciting. And I can give you details on that later when we actually have something concrete. But yeah, we are going through with it.
All right. It's happening. Woo. So excited. That is exciting. And it's going to wake up Clint Monroe. It's that exciting.
Hey, my name's Clint Monroe. I exist in a theoretical state somewhere around the constellation of Orion. You guys can find me the next time you guys go space trotting through the universe. Just hitch a ride and I'll pick you up.
Whoa, I better go soon then.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go. I'm ready now. Let's go. Just gonna...
all right.
All right. But first, we can't, before we leave the Valley of Shadows in Table Read Tuesday, and we'd like to introduce you and welcome for the first time to Table Read Tuesday, Jeremy.
Hey, I'm not sure how I can really follow an interstellar traveler, but
You got to be fast.
I'm an actor, singer, and maybe eventually a voice actor here in Dallas-Fort Worth area, where it's 105 outside right now. And I sometimes work on crews and sometimes do extras casting in this area. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. So thanks for having me.
Nice. Super excited to have you. Can you pronounce your last name just so we know it? I didn't want to say it at first, just in case.
Oh, yeah. Burgett.
Burgett. All right. Awesome. And Jeremy, is there anywhere you would like people to find you if they want to contact you for work in Dallas-Fort Worth or to hire you for voice acting or anything?
You can just look me up on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, just barely.
Okay. And just by your name, they should look up on those spots.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. With that, I think we're ready to get started. So I will share the screen. Dun, dun, dun. We will begin reading this excellent script. All right. Here we are. Valley of Shadows, written by Heather Leigh Cameron. Here's the cast that we have here. So excited to play. Fade in on black. Raymond, Alberta, Canada, July 18th, 2014, types across the bottom of the screen, similar to the typing effect from Independence Day. Fade into bedroom, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day. A young woman about 26 is crying in her room on her bed, with her head down. She is crying because she has been verbally mistreated by her younger brother and physically, verbally, and emotionally and financially abused by her father before and ever since she moved back home from the city. She is at her breaking point. She wants to leave again. Suddenly, a door somewhere else in the house opens and closes.
Kids, Helen, Benny, come up here, please.
The head lifts, revealing 26-year-old Helen Leanne Austin. Helen has long blonde hair, glasses, and is wearing a dark cardigan with a zipper. Her face is red from crying.
Helen, Benny.
Helen sighs and gets off her bed and leaves her room, irritated to be interrupted, but determined to leave as soon as possible. Cut to interior foyer, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta. Martina Austin, a 60-year-old woman with reddish hair and glasses that stands about 5 feet, is lingering in the foyer, wearing jeans, plain Crocs, and a blue t-shirt, and a baggy jacket, is anxiously lingering in the foyer. She looks very solemn and anxious, as if she's harboring a dark secret. Helen comes up the stairs and sees her mother waiting anxiously.
Benny, get off of your computer game and get up here now.
A few minutes pass before Benny Austin, 24, comes lumbering up the stairs in shorts, socks, a red sports t-shirt, and a hoodie. He runs a hair through his messy blonde hair before sighing irritably.
What? Helen, why do you have to be so annoying? Why can't you just be normal?
Helen, Benny, stop it. We're going to the hospital to see your father. He needs to tell you something. Let's go.
Helen and Benny put on their shoes and follow Martina out the door and to a green Windstar van that is parked in a dirt driveway. As they get into the car, Helen realizes this is a chance for her to tell her mother how she feels.
Mom, I want to move out. I'm tired of being treated so badly by Dad and Benny all the time.
Not now, Helen. This isn't the time. We've got to go visit your father at the hospital. He has something to tell you and your brother.
Helen sulks and Benny also sulks, but they are both sulking for different reasons. Martina, meanwhile, simply focuses her energy on getting the Windstar out of the driveway and down the street. Hospital room, interior, Raymond General Hospital, day, afternoon. The hospital room is a typical hospital room. John Austin, 62, is a rather heavyset man sitting in a hospital bed wearing a red hoodie. He has messy reddish brown hair and glasses. He is also sporting a solemn expression on his face. Martina, Helen, and Benny come into the room.
How's your leg, Dad? And your potassium?
I'm toast. I had an ultrasound in the city this morning and they found a mass pressing on my liver. I think it's cancer.
Martina lowers her head. She already knows the news because she and John talked about it earlier. Benny is stunned, silent. Helen, however, begins to cry and massage her chest because she has developed heartburn.
Both of my parents died from cancer and they were older than me, but it still sucks. I'm not even going to see Christmas or any grandkids. I'm only 62, damn it.
Helen's heartburn is suddenly out of control. She massages her chest and flees the room and tries to control it. Fade to black. Fade in, interior, green Windstar van, Raymond, Alberta, day, July 19th. Martina, Helen, and Benny are in the van driving to the hospital to visit John. Martina and Helen are in the front while Benny is sulking in the back.
Helen, Benny.
Yeah, Mom?
Benny does not reply. He remains silent.
There's something you both should know. The doctors, the cancer they think your father has, they think it's metastasized. It's most likely didn't begin in the liver. It probably began somewhere else, probably in the bowels.
The van goes quiet. Cut to montage of Martina, Helen, and Benny visiting John in the hospital. The mood is solemn, and while Martina is engaging with John as much as she can, Benny is sulking and Helen is struggling with crying and heartburn. Cut to interior hospital room, Raymond, Alberta, later. Martina and Helen are visiting John again. This time Helen has brought her camera.
let's take some pictures so we have them, so we have the memories.
All right.
Why would you want to do that? Look at me. I'm a mess.
Because, Dad, someday you're going to be dead, and I want the memories for myself and my children. This is important to me.
All right, kiddo. We can take some photos.
Montage of John, Martina, and Helen taking various photos with John as he rests in his hospital bed. The activity from the look in the photos definitely lifts John's mood. Fade to back porch, exterior Austin house, Raymond, Alberta, July 20th. John, Martina, and Helen are sitting on deck chairs on a wooden porch that surround a white fiberglass table. John is visiting his house on a day pass from the hospital and is wearing the same red hoodie, but it has been cleaned. A bowl of chips are on the table, and a brown Shih Tzu Yorkie, Frodo, a grayish cat, Cedric, and a black and white cat, Jacob, are all chilling on the porch in the midst of humans. John picks some chips out of the bowl, eats them, and suddenly gags, disgusted.
Oh, the chips don't taste right to me.
I'm sorry, honey. Maybe they're old. I can get you something else.
Oh, don't worry about it. Food kind of sucks right now anyway. That living room floor looks disgusting, Martina. Where's the vacuum?
John,
Dad, are you sure that you should be cleaning?
John gives Helen a warning look before pulling himself into a standing position and staggering inside to look for the vacuum himself. A few minutes later, the sound of the vacuum is heard for a bit before it fades. Time passes and John returns to the porch with a lobster red face. He sits, content.
Dad, your face is really red.
Oh, I want to stay busy. Is that a bad thing?
Martina and Helen exchange a worried glance, but say nothing because they decide it's easier to let him have his way than it is to argue. John yawns before falling asleep in his chair. Martina gets up and Helen follows.
it's really warm out, Helen. Let's let him rest here a while before we take him back to the hospital. He'll be fine out there.
Helen nods and follows Martina inside with the animals, leaving John to sleep on the deck alone. Cut to interior kitchen, interior Austin home. Martina and Helen linger just inside the sliding door, silently watching John sleep. Helen looks at Martina.
It sucks, Mom.
What sucks?
The cancer's just beating the crap out of Dad, and there's nothing we can do about it. He was so strong before this, and now he's just wasting away. He's so tired all the time, and it sucks.
I know, Helen. I know.
The two women continue watching John, both of them somber. Fade to interior Windstar van, Lethbridge, Alberta, July 20th. 1. Martina is driving and John sits in the front seat while Helen sits in the back. John is out of the hospital on an overnight pass and they are driving around in a city near Raymond called Lethbridge. The mood is somber.
I want a milkshake from McDonald's.
All right, John. Helen, you want to get something at McDonald's too? I could go for something.
Helen nods, and so Martina drives over to a nearby McDonald's, quickly pulling into the drive-thru so nobody has to get out of the car. John sighs tiredly.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order, please?
Dad, you can have anything you want off the menu.
John just shrugs. He doesn't care.
Well, 1 double Big Mac meal with a vanilla milkshake, 2 shrimp wrap meals, 1 with Fruitopia and 1 with a milkshake.
Helen smiles, but is a sad smile. She knows there won't be many more days like this. Thank God she has her journal and can record these memories for when worse times come. Fade 2. Interior living room, Austin house, evening. The Austin family living room. A recliner is sitting in the corner and beside it is a lamp. A white couch patterned with gold circles is to the left of the chair, and that is where John and Helen are sitting. Martina is sitting in a nearby chair. Benny is downstairs.
You know what, Helen? I don't think I have months. I think I only have weeks. I don't know.
What, Dad?
I'm getting weaker every day. Oh, every day I feel like crap more and more. I'm dying, kiddo.
Dad, if you really think that, you should make a will and arrangements.
John shrugs and looks over at Martina, who looks incredibly anxious and sad about what John is saying.
Oh, Martina, I want to go to Washington for your family's reunion.
No way. Absolutely not. I'm not taking you across the border in your condition, John. What if you died down there? I'd be in debt the rest of my life trying to get your body back to Canada.
John scoffs, clearly pissed.
Oh, you worry too much. I want $1 million so badly, and I want to buy a boat. Oh, I just want to enjoy life while I can.
Martina and Helen look at each other worriedly and then look at John. John, however, looks off into the distance, his thoughts scattered and anxious. Fade 2, exterior Raymond General Hospital, afternoon, July 22nd. John is sitting in a wheelchair wearing a black pair of sweats, a t-shirt with green, blue, black, and white stripes, a pair of red suspenders to hold up his pants up because he has lost so much weight, and a blue cap with an agricultural logo on it. He has a cigarette in his right hand that he is trying to smoke while he holds his brown Shih Tzu Yorkie named Frodo close to him with his left. The Shih Tzu is constantly trying to kiss him because he loves him so much. The red brick hospital building, Raymond General Hospital, sits in the background.
Dad, smile.
Despite the somberness of the situation, John smiles and holds the dog close to his face in a semi-cuddle with one hand while lowering the cigarette out of the frame because he doesn't want it in the photo. After a few photos, he puts the cigarette out and sets Frodo on his lap for a photo. Helen walks over to John, sits on a brick plant box, and studies him while petting the dog with one hand and holding her camera with the other. John sighs.
Well, my CT scan is Wednesday, so maybe I'll just come home on Thursday. What's the point of staying in the hospital if they can't do anything for me? I'm already on potassium, but I don't need to be here for that. I hate being here.
Helen nods and sighs. John just looks at her.
It's starting to get cold out, Dad. Why don't I wheel you back to your room?
John nods. Helen quickly returns Frodo to the chair that is parked nearby and leaves a window open for him before returning to John's wheelchair. John sighs tiredly as Helen wheels him back inside the hospital. Cut to interior hospital room, Raymond General Hospital. Helen wheels John into his hospital room, which is now bigger. It definitely has been lived in because it has bags of clothes, toiletries, and food containers on the tables and dressers. Helen parks John's wheelchair beside the bed and buzzes for a nurse because she needs help getting John back into bed. A nurse wearing an Alberta Health Services ID that has the name Becky on it comes quickly. Becky is wearing glasses, dark purple scrubs, and a gray cardigan with her long blonde hair done back in a braid.
Hi, can you please help me get my dad back into bed?
Becky nods and helps Helen move John from the chair to the bed.
Thanks. Becky, can you take a picture of me with my dad while you're here? It's important for me to have pictures of him because I don't know when that opportunity is going to run out.
Of course.
Helen takes the camera out of her pocket and hands it to Becky. Helen then sits next to John on the bed and leans against him. Becky takes a photo of them just like that. After the photo is taken, Becky returns the camera to Helen and leaves the room. Helen pockets the camera and stands. She helps John lay down in his bed properly and then gazes out the window, deep in thought. Fade to interior living room, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta night. Helen is eating a bowl of ice cream and Nanamino bars. Nanamino bars. I don't know that. Sorry.
Nanaimo.
Nanamo. Okay. Together while watching television in the living room, and Frodo is with her. She is tired and drained. The front door suddenly opens and closes. Oh.
Helen? Benny?
I'm up here with Frodo, Mom.
Martina comes upstairs and eyes the junk Helen is eating ever so briefly before joining her and Frodo on the couch. She begins petting and playing with Frodo, who attacks her with kisses.
I was visiting your dad. He told me something. He said, I'm never going to see my grandchildren, am I? An expression of dread. Oh, yeah. No, that's action description.
An expression of dread fills Helen's face.
Mom, I've tried and tried and tried to find a husband and settle down with a man and family. You know that.
Oh, Helen, I do know that.
No man I've ever expressed interest in has ever expressed that interest back. I'm too much of a freak for any man to love.
Helen, you're not a freak. You're unique.
Then how come Dad doesn't even love me?
We can't focus on that right now, Helen. Your father's dying. He needs...
I already forgave him for abusing me and hating me, but I don't understand why he did it and why he hates me.
He's an alcoholic, Helen, and alcoholism is a sickness. He chose the bottle over us, over loving you and me and your brother. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't have the energy right now. Ugh, everything's so hard right now.
I'm sorry, Mom. You want to share this?
Martina considers it and then takes the bowl.
Love you.
Helen responds by snuggling close to her mother, and Frodo sits on Martina's lap. For a moment, everything is peaceful. Fade to. Exterior liquor store, Lethbridge, Alberta, July 23rd. John exits the liquor store with a small paper bag in hand. He looks tired and exasperated, but determined as he walks over to the Windstar where Martina and Helen are waiting for him. He sits in the front passenger seat and opens the bag, quickly removing a Mickey from it. He opens it and begins to drink from it. Suddenly, after drinking a quarter of it, he stops, gags, and closes the bottle again. He stares at it in disgust before stashing it under the seat.
I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish it. I am so freaking tired of not being able to eat or drink as much as I want when I want. And I'm so tired of being sick.
John looks down and begins to cry. Martina cries and Helen cries in the back seat. All three of them are sad by the grim reality of John's situation. Close in on Helen, who is now looking despondent. Fade to Helen's room, interior, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, night. Helen is sitting at her computer looking emotionally drained with her Facebook page open. She posted about her father's health condition on Facebook a few hours ago because she is tired of just keeping it within the family and is just now browsing the internet.
Helen, come upstairs, please.
Helen sighs, gets up and promptly leaves her room. Cut to interior foyer, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, night. Helen comes upstairs and sees Martina lingering in the foyer with a tired expression on her face. They hug briefly before pulling apart. Frodo comes bounding down the stairs and begins hounding Martina for attention. Martina picks him up and he attacks her with kisses.
I took your father back to the hospital. He just needs a little more time there, a little more help before he can come home. He might get to come home tomorrow. As I was driving home, I got a few calls from people. Did you tell people about your father, Helen?
I posted about Dad's cancer on Facebook. I'm allowed. He's my dad and we're tired. We need help and support, Mom. We need to tell people so they can help us and support us.
Martina nods, resigned to the fact that they really can't do this on their own. She tears up and gives Helen a hug of gratitude. Helen returns the hug. Martina suddenly frowns.
Before I left the hospital tonight, your father asked for the rest of the Mickey so he could mix it with sips of Coke. I gave it to him. I know what you're going to say, Helen.
So that week he spent in rehab in Claire's home after Benny's graduation from university meant nothing?
How do you say no to someone who's dying, Helen? I can't.
So now that he's dying, he's just going to drink more than he did when he was alive? That'll make him die faster.
When your father first learned he had cancer, he decided to stop trying to quit drinking, Helen. Do you know why?
Why, Mom?
He said, screw it, I'm going to die anyways. What's the point of me quitting drinking?
So it's probably good that he ended up in the hospital the day he was going to interview for that new trucking job, right? If he had gotten the new trucking job, he would have gone back to the way he used to drink. He might have even gone back to drinking and driving like he used to. He might do more drinking anyway now that he has cancer, but
he's going to die, Helen. Soon. Don't harp on his drinking like you used to. I'm not going to. He's going to die. You don't want regrets for how you treated him when he was dying. So just don't treat him badly, even if he treats you badly. Be the bigger person. I'm not asking you to set aside your feelings, but don't hate on a dying person. Just don't.
Helen nods silently, kisses Martina on the cheek, and goes back downstairs. Martina holds Frodo close as she goes upstairs. Fade to black. Fade in. Interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day, July 25th. The Austin family is sitting together in the living room. John and Martina are sitting together on the white couch and with Frodo between them. Benny is sitting on the floor and Helen is sitting in the white chair that bears the same pattern as the couch, and she is holding Cedric, the cat.
So, this family meeting, there is a reason I called it.
is it because Dad ate 2 helpings of liver and onions and a piece of pumpkin pie last night? I'm so happy that he was so hungry.
Helen, do you always have to talk? Can't you just stop talking and be stupid for 5 minutes? No wonder Dad gets mad at you.
John scowls irritably at Martina and gives Benny a warning look, but doesn't say anything to him. Helen goes quiet.
No. Your dad wants to talk to you.
Oh, Martina, you do it.
All right. Anyway, your dad's cancer originated in the adrenal gland near the kidney, and that's actually a rare place for cancer to start. So I took your dad to a specialist in Lethbridge, as you already know, Helen.
How come I wasn't told about this?
Because all you do all day long is play on your computer, and then you stay up until 4 a.m. doing the same thing. Well, I'm helping Mom and Dad with everything. You're just on your computer and hiding from all this, Benny. That's why that's why they didn't tell you.
Shut the hell up, you freak. You're just a freak, Helen. Do you know that? You're just a freak who lives at home on disability.
Benny.
Benny, shut the hell up. Go downstairs if you're going to be a pain.
Benny, however, stays where he is and sulks angrily.
Oh. Okay, the tumor's too big to operate on, and there's not going to be any operation to try and get it out.
A somber silence fills the room.
A bit of it's in the liver, and a bit of it's in the lungs. It's outside the liver, too.
So what can they do about it?
Maybe chemo or radiation, kiddo. I'm supposed to have a biopsy to see what kind of cancer it is.
Martina suddenly picks up a list from the table.
I got the checklist you wanted, John.
Checklist?
I gotta plan my funeral, kiddo.
Why?
Do you want to be buried or cremated, John?
Cremation is creepy, Mom. I do not want my father to be ashes. I do not want him reduced to ashes and stuffed in a decorative urn.
All right. All right. We won't cremate him. We won't cremate you, John. We'll bury you. We'll bury him, Helen.
All right. I'll be buried when I die for you, kiddo.
Helen tears up and Martina and John just look at each other solemnly. Close up on John's solemn expression. He hates this, but he has to face it. Fade to black, fade in. Interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day, August 4th. Home from the hospital, John is laying on the couch with a pillow behind his back and a blanket over him. The television is on and he and Helen are watching a show. The doorbell suddenly rings. Helen gets up and goes downstairs to the door. Cut to interior Austin house foyer. Alex Austin, John's younger brother, is standing on the stoop, wearing jeans, cowboy boots, a jacket, dress shirt, and a flap cap. He looks nervous.
Uncle Alex? Oh,
Who's that?
hi, Helen. Is your dad here? I heard he was sick. Mom, Dad, Uncle Alex is here.
Excuse me? My brother is here?
Martina comes to the door. Alex doesn't look happy to see Martina, nor does Martina look happy to see Alex. However, they nod civilly to each other.
Alex, John's upstairs. Come in.
Alex does and goes upstairs silently, leaving Helen and Martina in the foyer.
I haven't seen Uncle Alex since I was 14 and at Grandma's funeral. What is he doing here?
Shh, just go downstairs to your room and let Uncle Alex and your dad visit, all right? Your dad is sick and dying, and maybe your uncle wants to make amends, so he has no regrets.
Helen nods and goes downstairs. Martina goes upstairs and into the kitchen, but keeps an eye on the conversation, making sure that John isn't too overwhelmed and that Alex doesn't prove too toxic or overwhelming. Alex, meanwhile, has engaged John in conversation, but is addressing him like he is a little child. John looks annoyed, but behaves civilly because he is too tired and sick to start a fight. The camera watches the conversation for a few moments and then fades. Fade to interior waiting area, Lethbridge Regional Hospital, August 13th. A hospital waiting area with drab walls and rows of chairs and a few tables that have magazines on them. John, Martina, and Helen are sitting together on some chairs. John is filling out some forms and looking miserable doing it. He hesitates at points and Martina helps him when he does. Meanwhile, Helen is writing in her journal.
Dad had a biopsy yesterday at Lethbridge Regional Hospital at about 7:30 a.m. Today, he is having a body scan and is currently filling out a questionnaire and will eventually be taken to the room for the scan. He doesn't have to change into a gown. Lucky him. He expresses a lot of fear through becoming angry at everyone else. Poor Dad, this illness is destroying him.
Fade to black. Fade in. Exterior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day, August 18th. John, Martina, Helen, and Benny are walking towards the car to go on an outing. John suddenly falls on the gravel ground.
Oh, damn it!
John, here, let me help you.
Oh, get the hell away from me, Martina. I'm gonna kill you.
John continues to curse loudly at Martina and runs inside to call for help. Meanwhile, Helen and Benny help John up and into the house. Cut to interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day later. John is now on the couch while Benny sits upright in a blue chair looking rather uptight and like he would rather be anywhere else, but Helen looks anxious. Martina comes into the room and just sits there, just as there is a knock at the door.
Paramedics!
What the hell?
Martina hurries out of the living room, down the stairs and to the door. She returns with two male paramedics who begin checking John over.
Okay, Mr. Austin, we'd like to take you to the hospital.
I'm not going.
John, you should listen.
Oh, shut the hell up, Martina. I'm going to kill you if you don't shut up. You're always nagging me.
Mrs. Austin, can we talk in the kitchen?
Paramedic number two takes Martina into the kitchen. Cut to kitchen, interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta. The kitchen is large, but it's a mess. Paramedic 2 gives Martina a concerned look while reaching for his radio.
Did he just threaten to kill you, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to call the R.C.M.P to come here and help us deal with him.
Martina nods reluctantly, her expression grim as the paramedic calls for the police assistant on the radio. Sirens fill the air. The camera follows Martina as she eventually returns to the living room, and the room blurs briefly before coming back into focus, revealing an R.C.M.P officer sitting on the couch beside John while Martina, Helen, and Benny sit on chairs.
I can't believe she called the police.
Does anyone else want to give a statement besides Mrs. Martina Austin?
Looking sick and like he would rather be anywhere else but there at the moment, Benny shakes his head and hugs himself.
I do. My dad threatened to kill my mom with the paramedics in the room. I love my dad, but he needs help that we can't give him.
John, I feel angry. Oh, this is a dialogue, John. Vicki, yeah, right here.
Muted. Vicki, you're
Oh.
muted.
Mute.
I fell and I don't need to go to any stupid hospital. Why doesn't everyone just leave me the hell alone?
Mr. Austin, you're belligerent enough. You've been belligerent enough that I have to do something. You have a choice. You can either come with me, or you can go to jail, or you can go to the hospital with the paramedics. Which is it going to be? Those are your only two choices here.
I'll go to the hospital.
John sighs weakly and lowers his head, more exhausted than anything else. Fade to gray. Fade in. Interior hospital room, Raymond General Hospital, August 20th. A typical hospital room. John is asleep in bed wearing a simply gown and is covered in IVs and a yellow blanket. A tube is in his nose. Helen enters the room. She looks scared but concerned. John wakes up and peers at Helen tiredly.
Hey, kiddo.
Hey there, Dad. How are you?
Helen kisses John's face and hugs him.
Tired.
I get that. Dad, I love you.
Silence. John looks at Helen with a tired, defeated expression on his face.
I just want to die.
Helen doesn't know what to say to that, so she simply hugs John again and they hold each other. Fade to interior hospital room, August 21st. Helen enters the hospital room carrying a container of soup, and she sees John laying in bed motionless. She screams loudly, thinking he has died.
Dad!
John wakes up in a flash, curses and peers at Helen. Helen lets out a relieved breath, and she immediately gives him a gentle hug.
Oh, please don't do that again, Dad. You scared me. I thought you had died all by yourself here, and I can't handle that, not yet.
Oh, you know it's coming.
I know it's coming, but not today. Look, Dad, I brought you soup. People from church made it and brought it over. Mom let me drive over here to give it to you.
John nods, and Helen sets up the soup for him on the portable tray. John eats a few bites before pushing it away.
Oh, I'm full. Oh, thanks for the soup, kiddo.
You're welcome. Dad, are you nervous about your upcoming appointment in Calgary?
John shrugs and says nothing. He is obviously tired and wants to sleep again. Helen immediately catches on and gives him a hug and a kiss. John accepts and returns both. Then the soup stays on the table.
Love you lots, Dad.
Oh, thanks for coming, kiddo.
Helen leaves and John goes to sleep. Cut to interior Windstar van, exterior Raymond General Hospital. Helen is sitting behind the wheel of the van, and she is simply drained from the visit. She is sad, but not crying. She has accepted that her dad is going to die, but acceptance doesn't make the inevitable any easier. She sighs heavily and looks up at the sky with a pained, pleading expression on her face.
God, do you know what my worst fear is? My worst fear is that I'll come to visit Dad at the hospital one day and he'll have died here all alone. He doesn't deserve that, God. Please don't let him die alone.
Letting out another sigh, Helen composes herself, starts the vehicle, and backs out of the parking space. Fade to interior hospital room, August 21st. John is resting in the hospital bed wearing hospital clothes while Martina sits in a chair beside the bed. They are holding hands. Frodo is sitting on the end of the bed. Helen is sitting in a chair on the other side of the bed, looking thoughtful and attentive. She has come to visit today for a specific reason.
So, kiddo, what's up?
Dad, I just wanted you to know that I forgive you. I forgive you for everything that happened between us in the past. I actually forgave you in my heart when I was 24, but this is the first time I said it out loud, and it needs to be said while it still can.
It's very good of you, Helen.
I love you, kiddo. And I'm sorry for everything I did to you in the past. Do you hate me?
No, I don't hate you, Dad. There is absolutely no bad blood between us. I love you dearly, and I am at peace with everything. I just hope you can be at peace with yourself too.
John nods, but looks deeply unsettled at the idea of being at peace with himself. Martina, however, pats his hand reassuringly and shoots Frodo over toward Helen.
Helen, why don't you take Frodo home? Your dad could probably use some rest. I'm going to stay with him. I'm sure he's grateful that you stopped by and let him know these things.
Nodding, Helen gets up and takes Frodo from the bed.
Love you, Dad.
Love you, kiddo. Bye, Frodo.
Helen leaves and the camera zooms in on John's troubled expression. Cut to interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, night, August 25th. John, Martina, Helen, and Benny are all sitting together in the living room, and Frodo is sitting between John and Martina. John and Martina have just returned from a medical appointment, and they want to discuss the news with Helen and Benny.
So, the visit to the Calgary Cancer Center kind of sucked. And Dr. Ruth said that there won't be any operation or any treatment. The cancer's definitely metastasized to my liver and my lung. It's going to kill me.
Oh,
Where did it start? Does he know?
The main tumor is in the right adrenal gland near the kidney. The most anyone can do is control it, and the better treatments available in Calgary. As far as we know, your dad's next appointment is on the 29th, and until then, just got to keep him comfortable.
Benny promptly gets up and goes downstairs without saying anything. He wants to find comfort in his computer games. John looks at Martina.
I want to have a smoke on the balcony.
Martina nods and helps John up. They go out to the balcony together, leaving Helen alone to process in silence and solemnity. She closes her eyes in grief. Fade 2. Interior Helen's room, interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, early morning, September 5th. Helen is asleep.
Helen?
What time is it?
Helen, it's 5:30 in the morning. I need your help. Your father's upstairs. He fell. I can't lift him by myself. Get up here.
Helen wakes in a flash and follows her mother upstairs. Cut to interior living room. John is laying on the living room floor looking grouchy and groggy. Martina and Helen hurry upstairs and quickly, but gently help John off the floor and onto the couch.
It's only going to get worse.
Helen and Martina exchange a grim look, knowing John is right. John, meanwhile, looks straight ahead solemnly as if he's looking forward into the future. The camera focuses on his expression. Fade 2. Interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day, montage, September 8th. Helen rubs John's back as he sits on the living room couch. John is fading fast, but he is still present in life and looks like he still has things he wants to do. Fade 2. Interior living room, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day, September 11th.
I want to go to Great Falls.
Pan out to reveal John, Martina, and Helen, all in the living room. Helen and Martina are standing while John sits on the couch.
What?
I want to go to Great Falls today.
John suddenly looks at Helen.
You're not going with us, Helen. It'll be just me and your mom.
Whatever. I have things here I need to do. Have fun in Great Falls.
Helen walks off towards the stairs and John is silent for a few moments. He suddenly looks at Helen as if deciding something.
John,
Helen, do you want to go to Great Falls with us? We don't have a lot of time to decide.
Helen suddenly freezes and turns back to John. She thinks briefly before nodding, feeling as if she should go.
Then go get packed, Martina. Let's pack.
Helen takes off downstairs in a hurry. John gives Martina a look and Martina helps him up so they can get ready to go to the Great Falls. The scene fades and as they walk off down the hall, fade to exterior Comfort Inn, Shelby, Montana. A broken alcohol bottle is laying on the street in front of the hotel doors, not far from the Suburban that John, Martina, and Helen has brought to Great Falls. John is sitting in the back of the Suburban side, looking annoyed that the bottle he brought back from the duty-free store is wasted. But Martina and Helen are more concerned about him.
I want another one for the pain.
we should clean up the mess and then get you into bed.
Why don't we get something to eat at the Country Skillet down the hill and worry about the bottle later? Do you want to try and eat something at the Country Skillet before you go to bed, Dad?
That sounds good.
Martina and Helen reluctantly get into the car and go off down the hill, leaving the mess behind. Cut to montage of Martina, John, and Helen eating dinner at the Country Skillet, a truck stop restaurant. While Martina and Helen sit at the table normally, John sits in a wheelchair. Montage of Martina, John, and Helen eating breakfast at the Country Skillet, a truck stop restaurant, the next morning, September 12th. While Martina and Helen sit at the table normally, John sits in a wheelchair. Montage of Helen driving the Suburban the rest of the way to Great Falls, while Martina sits in the back with John to keep an eye on him. Frodo is with them. Cut to Crystal Inn and Suites, Great Falls, Montana. Montage of John and Martina getting one room for themselves and Frodo, while Helen gets another for herself. Montage of John, Martina, and Helen going for a drive around Great Falls the next day, September 13th, with Frodo. The drive is short and quiet, but John appears to enjoy himself. Martina and Helen, however, are worried about being in the States with him because he could realistically die at any moment. Fade to exterior Crystal Inn and Suites, Great Falls, Montana. Everything in Frodo is packed in the Suburban.
We're checking out and going home today, John.
Why?
Because I'm so anxious being down in the States with you right now. If you were to die down here, we'd go broke trying to get your body back across the border. We need to go home now, all right?
John nods and goes quiet. Martina gives the keys to Helen.
You drive for a while, Helen. I can't concentrate. Besides, you're a good driver.
All right, Mom.
Martina and Helen get John into the car and then they leave. As the Suburban is moving, Martina looks at John, who is looking uncomfortable as if he needs more pain relief. Helen then looks at Martina in the rearview mirror and they realize things are only going to get worse. Fade to balcony, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, day, September 15th. Hands are resting on a swollen foot. Zoom out to reveal Martina sitting across from John, massaging his foot, while Helen is sitting across from them with a video camera pointed at John. John looks very bad, but he is still coherent. He just looks very zoned out.
Dad, are you sure you want to do this?
Yes.
Helen nods and John sighs. He doesn't want to do this, but he needs to do this.
Mom?
Okay. It's September
15th.
It's September 15th, 2014 in Raymond, Alberta, Canada. Got a question for you, John. Do you want heroic measures?
What?
Heroic measures. Do you want heroic measures to be taken if need be?
What?
Do you want people to tube you or shock you or stuff like that, or just let you die?
So something that just has to.
Oh, just let me die.
So you don't want any heroic measures?
I don't want to be shocked.
So that's a no? I need you to say, no, I do not want any heroic measures.
Or yes, you do.
I need you to say it clearly, Dad.
No, I don't want any heroic measures.
Okay.
Helen turns the camera off while Martina looks down sadly. John just sits there, slightly zoned out. He is not well. Fade 2, montage, September 16th. John sits on the couch drinking a bottle of black velvet whiskey, something he is using to cope with cancer pain, and watching TV. Benny comes into the living room and freezes, looking immediately disgusted at the sight of his father drinking. John tries to talk to Benny, but Benny immediately storms off downstairs, leaving John by himself with the bottle. Martina, who is watching John from the kitchen, comes into the room looking concerned. Montage, September 20th. Helen stands in the kitchen with John and watches as he attempts and struggles to cook an omelet in a pan. John tries to talk, but struggles to find words. Helen responds and chuckles, but she also struggles to hold back tears at the same time. She is clearly overwhelmed by the situation of being a caregiver and by how much and how quickly her dad has declined. She puts a hand over John's free hand to reassure him. Zoom in on the hands. Fade 2, interior living room, Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, October 8th. Zoom out to reveal John and Martina sitting together on the living room couch, holding hands. Helen is sitting in a big white easy chair, while John's best friend, Stanford Green, an Englishman, is sitting in a blue chair and looking annoyed to the point of disgust.
Say that again.
My mom's tired from taking care of my dad constantly, and I'm tired of helping her take care of him. My mom and I, we're thinking of putting Dad in a community bed for Good Sam's, just for a couple days, so we can get some rest.
Absolutely disgraceful. How dare you think of putting your father in a home? Simply disgraceful. You should want to love and take care of him. He's your father.
Well, you're a rude idiot who doesn't understand how hard it is to take care of my dad.
Helen tears off downstairs in tears, leaving an overtired John, an angry Stanford, and a shocked Martina behind.
Really, Martina, where did your daughter learn to be so rude?
Martina says nothing. Stanford sighs irritably and rises from his chair.
Well, John, next time I come by, we can go get a drink, yeah?
John nods, totally tired and out of it. Stanford leaves silently, letting himself out.
It's all right, John. Get some rest, and I'll try to make sure the others who visit you aren't so disruptive or rude.
John nods, leans back, and goes to sleep. Martina pats his hand again, and the camera zooms in on his hands. Fade 2, interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, October 13th. It's Thanksgiving. Martina, John, and Helen are eating plates of Thanksgiving dinner on TV trays and watching TV together. Formal dinners seem insignificant now. The three of them just want to spend whatever time together that they can. Benny has moved out by this point, so it really is just the three of them at home. The doorbell rings. Martina gets up and goes downstairs into the foyer to answer it. She returns with Alex. John is muted.
Alex?
I thought I'd come by and hang out with you today, John.
Helen, let's go eat in the kitchen and let them visit.
Helen and Martina take their dinners into the kitchen while Alex sits next to John, and the two begin talking. While Helen quickly finishes her meal and disappears downstairs to her room, Martina spies on the conversation because she feels uneasy about Alex's continued visits and presence. She knows in his weakened state, John is easily influenced, and she might have to be firm if Alex tries anything. She also knows that John is getting weaker by the day and that future visits might not be done at home. Fade 2, exterior Raymond General Hospital, Raymond, Alberta, October 15th. The sky is a dusky pink. John is sitting in a wheelchair wearing shorts, a multicolored striped shirt, a baseball cap, a jacket, and no shoes. He is smoking while Frodo sits on his lap. In his lap, Martina and Helen are sitting on the brick flower bed.
I hate being back here. Oh, it feels like jail.
I was right to bring you back here. You said you weren't feeling well. This is the best place to be if you're not feeling well.
What Martina and Helen do not say, however, is that John is probably in the hospital for the last time. He may not come out. Helen sighs, wanting to break the tension. John looks at her.
I was just thinking about the counselor I was seeing to deal with what's going on. I talk about your health and other things to him. I cry a lot in the sessions.
Oh,
No, the counselor said it's a good thing that I cry. My crying shows that I have love for Dad. Doesn't it bring comfort to you, Dad, that I'm crying for you?
yes. Yes, it does, kiddo.
Helen gets up, walks over to John, and hugs him. John returns the hug. Helen is truly sad about John dying, but is much sadder to see him suffering so much in the process of dying.
I'm cold.
Probably get you inside then.
Martina and Helen wheel John inside while John holds on to Frodo. Cut to interior palliative care room. John is now in a, can someone say it and help me out there? I'm fortunate not to know this word. Palliative care room to be made as comfortable as possible in his last days. John's bag of clothes is on a chair and food containers from home litter, the portable table and beside table, along with the DVDs, etc. Frodo is placed on the bed, and then Helen and Martina help John into bed. Once John is in bed, Frodo wanders up to him and John pets him. A resident Dr. Bobby Nolan suddenly wanders into the room.
Hey there, Mr. Austin. How are you feeling?
I hate being back here. I don't know if I'll leave.
I wanted to talk to you about that, actually. We should discuss care options. What kind of medical treatment do you want while you're in palliative care? Do you want life-saving measures if you get very sick and need resuscitation?
No. I don't want heroic measures. I made a video with Helen. I don't want that. I just want to die.
So you don't want life-saving measures if you get very sick and fall unconscious?
Absolutely not. I didn't even want to come back here because I was so afraid I was never going to come out. I'm never going to go home again, am I?
Oh, John.
Martina sits on the bed, hugs John, and takes his hand while Helen sits on the bed and watches sadly, realizing her father understands the reality of his situation. Dr. Nolan nods solemnly and offers John a chart filled with paperwork.
I'm going to need you to fill these out then, so we have your care directives in place for when that time comes.
John takes the forms, stares at it a while, crying silently, and slowly fills out the forms before signing them. As he returns the chart to the doctor, Martina begins to rub his feet in an attempt to calm him. Helen watches solemnly. Everyone understands that this is the beginning of the end. Fade to palliative care room, interior Raymond General Hospital, evening, October 16th. John is asleep in bed. Martina is sitting at his side. Helen hurries into the room and is quite somber.
I got your call when I was at the store. I bought Mom some Nanaimo bars, ice cream, and whipped cream for us. How is he? You said Dad fell.
Excuse me. He was trying to go out for a smoke and he fell. He hit his head, but he's fine. He didn't need an exam or stitches. He's just tired. That's why he's asleep.
Helen nods, her expression somber as she looks at her father. Martina suddenly sighs as she looks at Helen.
Your Aunt Sherry and Uncle Alex want to visit your dad tomorrow. I want you here with me when they do. When your uncle called about visiting tomorrow, he talked with a tone that I didn't like. I just need you here with me tomorrow, all right, Helen?
Helen is mystified and concerned by Martina's anxiety, but she nods and Martina looks relieved. Fade to Interior Raymond General Hospital, October 17th. Helen enters the hospital via the emergency room entrance and immediately hears loud voices. As she nears her father's room, she sees her mother and Uncle Alex facing off. They both look angry, like they want to engage in a physical fight.
You're so incompetent, Martina. I want my brother moved to a better facility for better care. I will get a lawyer and handle it. Try to stop me.
Get the hell out of here, Alex. I'm John's next of kin and I have the power of attorney. You haven't seen him since your mother's funeral. And even though you only live an hour and a half away from us, you have no power to get him moved anywhere.
Alex scowls. He looks ready to hit Martina, but he doesn't. He instead stalks past her and into John's room. Martina remains outside looking angry. Helen, wondering what happened, goes into John's room herself. Cut to Interior Hospital room montage. Helen listens in as John visits with Alex and Sherry, his brother and sister. After a while, she takes a photo of them together and she shares hugs and kisses with Alex and Sherry before they leave. Alex and Sherry leave the room. Alex and Martina have another stare down because Martina comes in as they are leaving.
I won't be back.
Alex leaves coldly, but Sherry leaves more peacefully.
Oh, my God. I just want that pain to go away. Why won't it just go away?
Fade 2, Interior Hospital Room, Raymond General Hospital, October 19th. Helen singing "A Poor Wayfaring Man of Grief" fills the air. Montage of several people from church, work, and Sherry visiting John in the hospital. Meanwhile, John struggles to visit with him. He is in pain and declining rapidly. He is also fighting death as he fears it. Montage of John sleeping in bed and suddenly waking up, deeply frightened by something that is not visible. October 23rd, 2014. He is also in the room and takes his hands in an attempt to comfort him. Helen does.
It's all right, Dad. Just let the angels carry you.
Montage of John laying asleep in his hospital bed, mumbling, "Let's go," to nobody in particular. October 24th, 2014. Helen and Martina look on in concern and wonder as they know John is basically begging to die. Montage of John laying asleep in this hospital bed, October 25th, 2014. He suddenly mumbles, "Come on." Helen and Martina, who are by his side, are praying for him to go into death without suffering or pain. They are quite emotional about it. A song called "If You Could Hie to Kolob" is being sung by Helen as a voiceover during the semi-silent scene.
Please let go, Dad. Let go.
Come on. Mom, come on. Come on.
Martina freezes, realizing that John is not calling for her, but for his deceased mother. Helen silently watches, immediately understanding who John is calling for as she sits and writes every moment in the journal. Fade to gray, October 26, 2014, 5:14 p.m. is typed across the screen. Fade in. Interior, Raymond General Hospital, Raymond, Alberta. Thunder rumbles outside as Helen enters the hospital room carrying a bag of food containers. Martina is beside the bed and family and friends, Jazz and JANITHA ACKERMAN, are sitting on the couch in the room. John is semi-conscious in the bed with only an IV and tube serving as life support, and he is covered by a basic blanket. He looks nearly gone, but is still breathing, albeit barely.
Mom, I brought you dinner.
Martina walks over to the portable table to look at the food, and Helen suddenly freezes before falling silent, noticing that John's breathing has just changed.
Dad's breathing just changed.
Everyone in the room goes still and silent. All eyes are on John and his breathing. The Ackermans get off the couch and move closer to the bed, as does Martina. John's breathing quickly gets slower, slower, and slower. until it suddenly stops, and John dies quietly without any death shudder. As John lies still, Helen suddenly moves back to the couch, sinks down onto it, and begins to sob loudly. Outside, it is raining loudly. Everyone remains in their positions for nearly half an hour before Helen gets up, composes herself, and walks over to John. She gently leans down and kisses her dead father's forehead 3 times rather gently while crying.
Goodbye, Dad. I love you.
Helen then hugs everyone else in the room and leaves. Cut 2. Interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, night. Helen enters the foyer to finds one of her mother's friends, Carolina Robbins, already there and scrubbing the kitchen floor on her knees. Carolina stops what she's doing when she sees Helen and comes down to the foyer.
It's gone.
Carolina hugs Helen.
What are you doing?
Your mother called me from the hospital, and I decided to come over and clean since she's still there. Jim's also coming over to help me with the house.
Helen nods and, continuing to cry, she disappears downstairs in silence. She is grateful, but tired and sad, and doesn't really know what else to say at that point. Cut 2. Interior Helen's room, Interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta. Helen sits on the bed crying silently while she types up a Facebook post announcing the death of her father. She has blogged the entire experience and has also periodically made updates about his health on Facebook, so she knows that this update is only proper. However, it is hard for her to do because she keeps crying the entire time. As Helen works, her bedroom door opens and an older friend, Jem Loran, comes into their room and sits on the bed. Helen finishes her post while Jem watches patiently and then turns her attention to Jem. They hug. Fade 2. Interior Austin House, Raymond, Alberta, night later. Helen comes upstairs to find that Martina is home and sitting on the couch. They share a hug and sit together. The door suddenly opens and Benny comes upstairs. He hugs Martina and Helen and then sits in a chair, not sure how to react to this sudden event. Martina looks at Helen.
We need to go to the generations. Look at caskets. We need to talk about the funeral.
Benny looks uncomfortable, but says nothing. Helen, however, nods. Fade 2. Interior Generations Funeral Home, Lethbridge, Alberta, October 27. The casket display room at the funeral home. Martina and Helen are walking through the room, looking at the different caskets and their price tags.
Why are these caskets so expensive? We can't afford any of them.
We'll have a viewing for him where people can see the body and pay their respects, and then have a closed casket for the service. I was actually thinking about cremating him because it's cheaper. The funeral home can take dad and cremate him after the what? Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. Cremate him after the funeral. What do you think about that?
Then what do we do with the ashes?
I'm not sure. We'll have a meet the family thing with the casket open, the service, and then we'll have a family lunch after. They'll come and take the body away. I just know I can't afford to bury him because he left us with nothing at all.
Helen nods, eyeing the caskets uncomfortably.
Helen, you're good with design programs. Did you make the programs for the service and give your dad's life history? I can read something that Stanford wrote. I can't do it. And read something that Stanford wrote. I can't do it, and Benny won't.
Sure, Mom. I can take care of all that, and I'll write the obituary.
Make it a short one, less expensive.
Helen nods as a proper-looking man named Christopher, dressed in a suit, comes into the casket display room.
Hello there. Welcome to the Generations Funeral Home. How can I help you today?
We're here to find a basic casket. We need help planning a funeral for my husband that isn't too expensive.
Christopher nods. Martina sighs and Helen looks solemn, her eyes on the casket display. Fade 2. Relief Society Room, Interior Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, October 30th. A casket containing John's dead body sits against a wall. Just below a photo of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Pan out to reveal Helen and Martina sitting together on soft chairs, both of them dressed in formal clothes. Martina is wearing all black and Helen is wearing black dress that has blue stripes on the skirt. They are sitting together with the body before the wake.
Where's Benny?
He was in the backyard when we left. JANITHA went to check on him.
Helen nods and suddenly gets up. Helen walks over to the casket and studies her father closer and kisses him 3 times on the forehead.
He tastes like soap and he's so tiny.
Martina chuckles sadly at the comment and then looks towards the window in the direction of the family home. Where is Benny? She needs both of her children there today. Cut to backyard, exterior Austin house, Raymond, Alberta, day. Benny is lingering in the backyard wearing his suit and tie. His arms are crossed and he is crying silently. He misses his father terribly and doesn't want to go to the funeral. JANITHA suddenly enters the yard looking angry.
Benny, why aren't you at church with your mom and sister? They need you there today.
I don't know.
You need to come with me, and we need to go to the church right now. The viewing's going to start pretty soon.
Benny turns his back to JANITHA, thinking that Benny is deliberately ignoring her. JANITHA comes around to his face and finds Benny crying hard. She suddenly feels bad about being angry with him.
Benny.
I don't want to say goodbye to my father. God, he's too young to be dead. I don't want to do this.
JANITHA puts her hand on Benny's arm and Benny cries for several minutes before sighing and composing himself.
Your mother and sister need you today, and you need to say goodbye. You need to do this, or you're going to regret it forever.
Benny nods, hugs himself, and silently follows JANITHA out of the backyard. JANITHA and Benny walk towards the nearby church together. Fade 2. Interior Relief Society Room, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Montage of Martina, Helen, and Benny somberly greeting people at the meet the family portion of the service. Organ music suddenly fills the air. Fade 2. Interior Chapel, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Organ music is playing as John's closed casket is brought in by several pallbearers, including Benny. Everyone is seated. Martina and Helen take a seat in the front row. Once the casket is set up, Benny joins Martina and Helen in the front row. Montage of Helen giving John's life history over the pulpit and also sharing the notes that Stanford passed along to be shared, as he didn't come to the funeral himself. As she speaks, everyone listens intently, but Benny, who is overwhelmed, nearly vomits because he is so very overwhelmed with grief. Then Helen is done speaking. She rejoins her family. Abide With Me is played as the closing hymn. After the song ends, several pallbearers, including Benny, take the casket out. Martina and Helen follow, followed by the rest of the crowd. Fade to black.
It took a while to decide what to do with the ashes, but when I finally decided what to do with them, I got permission from the town to spread them where I wanted to spread them and spread them by myself. I made it as special as I could on my own.
Fade in. Corner Lake, Raymond, Alberta, March 21st, 2017. Wearing jeans and sneakers, a white V-neck shirt, and a red-white windbreaker, Helen walks down a red gravel path and crosses patches of slightly green, slightly dry grass with a metal canister in a box in her arms. She goes up a hill and down a hill until she is facing the shore beach of a corner lake. She sits on a hill, sets the container on the grass, and gets out her camera out of her purse and turns it on after pointing it at her face. The breeze is strong.
Many thoughts crossed through my mind, Dad. I don't know what the hell possessed you to be the way you were in life. Honestly, it would be so much easier if I hated you, but I don't hate you. I never will hate you. I hate what you did. I hate how you treated this family. Honestly, there's not much to say about that. You know what you did. You treated everyone so badly that they didn't want anything to do with this. They gave it to me. Here I am, alone. Honestly, what is there to say? Life was so difficult. I hated that you didn't see me for what I was truly worth. I hated that you wasted your life on booze and cigarettes. I hated that you were constantly training others badly despite all that they could do to help you. I hated the person you became because of the addictions. I hated that you treated Mom with disrespect, even though she stayed with you through all things. Honestly, I love you, but you chose this life for yourself. Good luck to you. I don't hate you. I just hate what you became because of your choices. Honestly, may God keep you. If you choose to be kept, then let God keep you. I love you.
Sighing heavily. Helen sniffles and turns the camera off. She puts her camera in her purse and leaves her purse in the grass. Helen carries a canister, which is quite heavy, down the hill to the beach and opens it. Helen opens the canister and begins pouring the ashes in the water and along the shoreline. Helen chooses a spot to spread the ashes because this is where John and the rest of the family used to walk the family dogs, and it had significance to him. The spreading of the ashes takes several minutes, and when Helen is done, she throws the container and the box. The container came in on the beach. The box floats into the water.
Goodbye.
Helen turns and climbs back up the hill and down the other hill, gradually going out of sight. Fade to black. All right. I think after that, we all need a moment to take a break. So we will have our intermission, roughly 5 minutes, and compose ourselves. And then we'll come back, and those that can discuss, we'll discuss some more. And then after that, we'll invite Heather back to discuss with her. All right, you guys have a good intermission. I'll see you guys in 5-ish minutes.
All right.
Whoa. All right, as everyone is on their way back, we'll say good job, Heather, and good job, everyone. So great job, I think, reading those roles. All right, so before Heather comes on, would you guys like to share your thoughts about, as if you were a reader just reading the script, what your thoughts are on the script or the story, some of that?
I say
Very.
let's all jump in. I was like, I'll sit back, but no. I had the feeling it was really emotional. Obviously, it got to me. I think that the piece that we have that isn't in the script specifically is the neurodivergence. And I think that would be a major, I think it's already there in the script, the conflict between the neurodivergence and the neurotypicals. But if it was spelled out a little more, I think it would just give a future reader that that piece of information that really sells it for me. It's that conflict of like, how do you deal with grief in a neurotypical and neurodivergent way? And I think that it's there in the dialogue because the character, the main character, I'm calling her Heather, but has the dialogue is very specific. The neurotypical characters speak neurotypical and the neurodivergent character speaks differently. Like you can tell if you took the headers off, this is a test I heard. If you take the character headers off, can you tell who's talking? And you still can. So I think that's strong in this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
again impressive, like a good feat if you can tell the different characters and how they speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know about the neurodivergent things. So do you think you would have grasped that if you didn't know? Or do you think it needs that clarity in there and that could help it?
I think I might have, just based on Helen's dialogue and the ones Benny argues about how she's a freak. I think it's there, but it could also be spelled out in the action description at the beginning.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be a little bit clearer.
And see, I would not put it in action description because if you can't see it or hear it, it shouldn't be in the script as
Okay.
far
right.
as, but if you could do it in actions, like in not like say she is neurotypical or whatever, but have actions that show that a little more, you know. Have Helen.
I wonder about that. I know where you're coming from, and I think that's great that we should show it rather than just saying, especially action description. But I wonder sometimes when it comes to casting decisions, that should sometimes can be mentioned in the character descriptions just to make sure a neurodivergent person is cast, or if it's for any other type of role, female, Asian, or
I think that would be okay as long as that's not all that's fallen back on, like that you're only relying on saying you're neurotypical and this is the casting. If it's also shown in the script and the
absolutely.
And that dynamic, that like how having to deal with how to communicate with each other in a way that everybody understands is strong in this. And it reminded me in that way of that movie Incredibly Loud and Uncomfortably Close, or whatever it was called, which had that sort of similar dynamic.
I don't think I know that one.
I'll see if I find it.
I saw it, but I forget.
Don't watch it.
I hate
it's
that
too
about my
sad.
brain. I watch so many movies and just forget so much stuff. But
Whereas
It
me,
all
it's like, I can
amalgamates
only
together
relate to movies.
into one super movie in your head.
yes.
But first off, sorry, I didn't want to start jumping into what I thought about it before I said huge congratulations on finishing, on getting through a first draft. That's a huge thing. Doesn't matter how many pages, when you get through that first draft, it's a big thing and that should be celebrated. So
Yeah,
And
definitely.
such an emotional, personal script. Like, again, I hope that it was therapeutic in its way on getting this out, getting it out there in this way. But
Yeah.
a lot of bravery. Yes, Roxzane.
I think that as viewers, we're a little bit at a disadvantage because we do know Heather and we do know a lot about what her background and her situation is. So there's a lot of us being able to see and picture and read into things. But if you can just distance yourself to exactly what the script is, it feels an awful lot like a video journal. And as far as from a storytelling perspective, I think that there's some things that it needs added. As far as character development, I think that the big thing is the forgiveness in this. But in order to, as a viewer, to be able to really, I don't know what the right word is, but to really feel that forgiveness, I think that there needs to be a little bit more shown of the conflict. And really what we have of the conflict is action description at the very beginning of the character has her head down and is upset because she's feeling abused by her. So I think that more of that would need to be shown from a storytelling perspective for the viewer to really feel that kind of forgiveness that happens. My 2 cents.
Should we put Jeremy on the spot since he doesn't know, Heather? Just kidding.
Do
No,
it.
I won't do that,
There it
Jeremy.
is. I'm
But if you
holding up
wanna
the
say anything,
spotlight.
It's
It's,
welcome.
it's shining right on you.
All right.
And this is just one person's opinion. Everyone would be, every individual reader or person that gets it will have a different, slightly different reaction or take from based on their personal experiences.
Well, I was kind of thinking along the same lines as Roxzane. Am I saying it right? I don't think that, being just your average dude, I'm probably not the demographic that this would appeal to, mostly. So I'm not really the target. But there's the concept of earning something in a script or in a performance that has been coming up to me a lot lately. So kind of to piggyback off of what she said, if the character's journey is, I feel like with this script, maybe we started a little bit late. So if we got more of, and Roxzane, you can tell me if I'm completely butchering whatever what your kind of point you're making. But if we got more of the backstory and we saw more of how John was before all this, then his arc becomes bigger and better. And at the point where, he's at his lowest, and then maybe there's reconciliation later on, then that feels like it's earned, because in the beginning, there was all this, and then you have to go through this to get to this. And if you kind of start too late in a story, or if, and not in this story, but if in a different screenplay, like if, you've all seen movies where we don't know anything about this character, they're a bad guy, and we're like, okay, well, he's a bad guy, and that's all we know about him. He didn't earn his reputation of being, bad guy. So it's kind of similar. Does that make sense? If the audience isn't brought along with the whole journey, then it means less when it's resolved, because it's not earned as much. Is that enough word salad for y'all?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and there
Yeah,
was a little
yeah.
bit of word dressing on that salad, which was really nice. It had like a nice zesty tang to it.
The
Nice.
word I was trying to come up with was invested. You want the audience to be invested in that forgiveness, and for them to be invested in it, they need to see some of what's being forgiven, and all that is referenced in the script is in the action description. And that description is not going to come across, that she has her head down because she's upset for whatever reason, unless you actually see that reason. All you see is a character with their head down and upset. You don't know it's because she's feeling abused. So in order for the audience to be invested in that, they have to see some of that. So yes, exactly, Jeremy, that's what I was trying to say too. There needs to be more.
There could even be something interesting about like the characterization of our main character and how differently she sees the world. So like I just watched The Millers versus the Machines, and the main character has this sort of daydreamy vision where like there's cartoon scribbles and stuff when she views the world. And I imagine maybe something like that could be cool, where it's like when we see the scene through Heather's eyes, we see it differently than the neurotypical audience sees it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Other than that, there's
Director
there's
talk there.
some definitely some stuff that can be cleaned up. Like there's a hell of a lot of sighing in here, Heather. That can be less
And
sighing.
the words, the
Yeah.
word solemn is used a lot, understandably. And some, well, we don't have to get into those specific of words yet, but like suddenly, like some screenwriters say, like things happen, you don't need to say suddenly, so that could help remove some, but minor stuff.
I would
Kat, did you have a
also-
thought? Oh.
Well, on the minor things, I would take out their names. You have them saying their names so often, and you don't have to say that. It'll be apparent who they're talking to without the names being said. So if they're saying like Helen, blah, 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 Helen, blah, 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 Benny, you know, all that, Martina or whatever. It's not as needed it's not as needed as much as you think it is. So if you could take out, even if you took out all of them and then see how it looks and read through it, just as a an exercise, take all the names out when it's in the dialogue and see if you can still tell who they're speaking to. And if it sounds natural, then it might work. Just a thought.
I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Well,
have
Kat,
to disagree
first-
with you on that
yeah.
one, Angel.
What's that?
I think I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. Partly because when certain characters say names over and over again, that's a way of controlling. If you watch someone who's super controlling, they will often say another person's name. And if in this case it's the father, or sometimes maybe the mother that is trying to gain some control in her own life by saying someone else's name, repeatedly, they're emphasizing their role as being in charge. And
Okay.
I think
was
that
everybody who
might be
did
one
it,
reason
though,
why they
so-
show up so often.
But it was everyone who did it. So if everyone did it, were they all trying to get that control? I guess that's a
No,
question to ask.
everyone did it, but yeah. I think it's a way to make a point, I guess. So, but I think it'd be worthwhile to go through and look at who says what names and how often.
Yeah,
And
I
this
just
is,
noticed it was almost every line was saying the name in almost every line.
and this is
so-
great for when people to receive feedback, to know that there will be different opinions when people say things. It's just something to look at, and it's good, like Kat was saying, if you're doing this or not, to have a reason that you're doing that, and that
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
think about it and consider it.
Can I split the difference on those two opinions? Because I was just thinking about this yesterday, because I swear there's this goofy show on HBO that I watched, and the last 3 episodes, they've had 2 characters in each episode, and I have no idea what their names are. Their names have never been said. No one's ever called them by their name. It's just a big blank spot. And that just drives me nuts, because I'll be half an episode deep into something, and I'm like, who is this person? Are they important? I guess they're not important enough to have a name, so anyway, that's just my 2 cents, is that I think everyone's name should be spoken in the script, or in the show or whatever, at least once or twice in the beginning, and then maybe you can forget about it writing it.
And there's
anyway,
certain
but,
times that make sense, like
it's been
when we
established.
see, like when I see my brother and stuff, I don't always say his name, but if it was a mom yelling to them upstairs or downstairs because they're far
Oh, yeah.
away,
And
they
getting
would
their
say
attention.
their name to
Mhm.
bring them over there who they're talking to.
That was a great job of splitting the difference, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when
Your
I said
word
take them all
salads
out,
and you're
it was-
splitting the differences, man.
when I
Play
said to
both
take them
sides.
all out, I didn't mean to leave it that way. I meant as an exercise. Take them all out and just see how it reads.
Yeah.
Don't leave it like that. Just an exercise.
To go.
All right, well,
back to
Heather,
what
I
some of-
got, as you know, I always got pages and pages of notes. So I got 3 pages of notes. I can either go through it here or I can go through it while you're on it. It's
Right.
your choice.
Well, she can't tell us what her choice is, but
And I'll learn from you.
what one thing I did like, because this is a personal story, like certain of the details maybe aren't needed, but some of the very specifics, which I'm guessing are some of Clint's notes, because he likes that stuff. Like some it's like it felt real. Like whether this was a real story or not, like knowing some of the stuff and the way certain things are described is like, I don't know, some of it was really nice. I thought, but all right.
I wanted to add too that as someone who's been in a similar situation, not with an abusive father or anything, but having a parent die. My mom was in and out of hospitals for 2 or 3 years. This story came across very realistically, especially in terms of how much burden there is on the caretakers to take care of the person who is dying and how stressful that is. And that came across very, very well. It took me a while when I was listening to the script to figure out, at first I thought the story was mostly about the dad because he's the one that's dying. And then I realized, pretty early on that the main arc is actually about Helen, the character of Helen and how she's going to grow and change throughout the whole thing. So I think there's not that there what has to be one or the other in terms of arc, but I think those are two the arcs that get followed in. So if the emphasis is supposed to be on Helen, there should be some more examples or ways of how she changes and grows throughout the script. Like when her brother moves out, all of a sudden there was like, oh, brother's gone now. Oh, and brother's back. I'm sure that had to have a huge impact if Helen is still staying at home, but the brother gets to leave. That is not necessarily central to the whole main story, but it certainly would be, and if we develop that a little bit more, for example, could help the other two arcs, grow together or get bigger, and make more. What's more that Roxzane was saying earlier, the investment into that character that would help get us invested, because we might not be able to relate to a dying father or might not be able to relate to a neuro divergent person, but we can maybe relate to a sibling leaving, those kind of things are all different details that you could bring in to add a little more depth. But yeah, the whole caretaking difficulties was very realistic.
And what you said right there was just a line. It said the brother no longer lives there. But it's like when you see that in this film, it's like, how did they film that? What evidence? I mean, they could have her like look in his room and it's now empty and the computer is gone and stuff, but that would need to be written if that's how they're going to show it. Like with that's just that line of description, we don't know how the audience knows that he doesn't live there anymore. We didn't see him moving out, didn't see any evidence except for that line. So that's would have to be written in a different way. Erin, you wanted to say something?
A couple things, yeah. Along the lines of characters and more description, I think there are characters that are named but don't have any lines at the very end. And there are some characters that are only there for 1 or 2 scenes, like STANFORD, the woman who's cleaning the floor. I think that in the adaptation of reality, you can condense some of those characters into one character. So maybe you just have, I think it was Jacintha or something like that, that is the friend of the family that comes and supports, that talks to mom, that is there cleaning the floor, that comes and puts her arm around Heather, or the Alex brother can also be STANFORD because they're like 2 villains, right? They can be 1 villain in the adaptation of this story just to condense it and make it easier. And I think there could be a second story in here because right now we're just following Helen and the dad and the caretaking. And I've had this similar experience with caretaking. I was just talking about it today. We're finding someone on the floor and having to call the paramedics to pick them up and never coming home from the hospital and all that heaviness, which is all still there. Maybe there needs to be a lightness to alleviate it. Maybe the brother is a comedic element where we show him every once in a while, like playing the games, and he's taking his aggression out in the games in a funny way or something. So like a second story element. So we've got our main story and then our second story that's also happening with the sub characters. And there was one more thing I wanted to say, and I have forgotten it, and it may or may not come back to me. So I'll pause.
It'll come back to you. Let us know.
I'm going to shift the spotlight onto our resident screenwriter, scholar, Morgan. What you got? Or Mulder. You can pass the buck to Mulder if you want.
So I was late, obviously. So I didn't get to hear the first part of the script, and I apologize for that. I did write down a few notes. Maybe take out some of those parentheticals. I feel like there was a ton. A way to fix that can be just adding that into the action. Definitely take out any parentheticals that is in the middle of dialogue, because it's a no-no. You can describe somebody's emotion and the way that they look. Like you could describe the tears in their eyes, or the way that their face looks sunken. You don't have to put it that they're sad or they're confused next to every single dialogue sequence. I thought it read very much. There was a point where I stopped looking at the script and I just was listening. And I feel like it read very much like a stage play that is made into a movie. I don't know if you guys have seen many of those. I have. But what I mean by that is it didn't feel super visual. It felt very much about the characters and the characters' emotions. I don't know if that's something that you want to focus on, or if you want to add more visual aspects of it, because it is a movie. But it's just something to think about.
Notes.
Some of the challenges, it seems like, with this is it being such a personal story. So two factors with that is, one, and Heather, you have to tell us later, like this, if you were, and this goes, I think, back to what you guys were saying about earning that arc, earning that change. Like, do you guys feel that we need to see some of the bad things that the dad did? Like in this version of the script, just this little segment, he doesn't seem that bad. At first, he actually seems pretty good, and then a little worse at the end, but not that bad in this little segment that is shown here. So do you guys feel that either need to start earlier, or that would be a flashback later, and that's required?
I was going to say, I would love to see more of that relationship before all of this happened. Yeah, I'll just to see what their relationship was without the cancer. Yeah.
Right, like when the father says, "I'm going to kill you," there needs to be a sense of threat there. If it, if you're trying to tie that to an abusive behavior versus someone who's just getting dementia because they're going through something, and it's not necessarily clear cut which it was, because people who get really at that stage of life sometimes can have personality changes especially if there's something going on in the brain. This is mostly physical cancer, so I figured it wasn't probably that, but it wasn't necessarily obvious, because my mom did have dementia, so I was listening to to that, like, it came across the same way, because they can get more belligerent in that sense. So you need to have a clear cut that this is more of a typical pattern from the past as opposed to a new statement, and you can, and that how the characters react to that statement could have probably help alleviate for the audience which one it is. The paramedic obviously, you just say you're going to kill you, and then the way the mom reacts and the way the daughter reacts makes a huge difference on how we are going to react to that statement.
Yeah, because it was mentioned earlier in the script and there was no reaction to it whatsoever. So when he said it the second time, I was like, oh, this is just something he says. What I mean? It didn't seem so serious. But then they were acting serious about it. And then the mom did go along with it. So maybe felt it was serious, but it was a little more unclear because of that, I thought. So, all right, if no one else has something right there, then there's one more I was gonna say, like, and again, because this is a real life story and you are pulling it, again, I know too much from that journal. Again, depending on how you wrote it, like if typing, you could, I know you have the typing on the screen, but it could do on like a Facebook type post, or if you wrote it in the journal, it could be written by hand. So it's different than other things. But on that note, some of this feels a lot like this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened, rather than like this happened because of this, or like this happened because of this, and like emotional things driving it. So I think you would want to get away from that. And like other people were talking about, like having that arc and that change built into it would help it not feel like it's just going through the
Yeah.
remembers of what happened.
All
What do you
right.
guys
Well,
think?
yeah, totally.
I remember the other thing.
Yay.
Yeah.
I think it was like at the very end, she has a long voiceover and a journal entry,
Mhm.
but that
Yes.
appears at the end. I don't remember it appearing at the beginning. And some wise teacher I had once said, if you're going to do a gimmick like a voiceover, you need to start it at the very beginning. So it's not a surprise when it does show up later.
I think that'd be great to book into like that. Do it at the beginning, do it at the end, showing that it is a journal type thing that's being done
Yeah.
that whole time.
I like it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really
I think we should bring her in
here.
soon.
I'll
Do
get
you
I'll
guys
get
want
into
anything
mine
else
really
before?
quick since we're doing
Okay.
that. Yeah, one of the things that I noticed, I obviously this is a first draft. A lot of people alliterated to it already, but just the redundancy of words. Like even at the very end, it was like she walks up a hill, then goes down a hill, then sits on a hill. It's too many hills back to back. And whenever I'm writing, I always have the thesaurus tab open. Solemn, I think, was said a bunch of times. Sulking was said a bunch of times. Just throw on a thesaurus. It makes it read much smoother to get out of that. Another thing that I caught was, again, what Morgan was talking about, is making it more visual. And a lot of the action descriptions are talking about how the father's declining, but you're not really seeing how the father's declining. And you can do that a lot in his dialogue, what he's saying, how he's coughing, how he's getting weaker, how he shakes or stutters or has to pause, how he, when you're on chemo or cancer treatment, you're sick, you start dazing out, your brain's not working, you forget what you're saying halfway through a sentence. Things like that are going to build that suffering and make it a lot more visual. What else did I have? The abusing me part and the I'm a freak part. I think this is just my own personal take on it. I think, you guys can all either agree or disagree, but for me, it's a little bit vague, and this is such a personal story. Getting more into what he did will impact the audience more. It will villainize the father a little bit more, which will make that reconciliation at the end much better, right? When he starts to realize that he's dying and that he's made all these mistakes. So I think I would add a little bit more into that. It doesn't have to be too personal. You don't have to pour your heart and soul into this. I know this is a personal story, and some of those things might be a little bit too personal for you to put out into the world. So you can, just add some type of more descriptions than just abuse, or like, I'm a freak. Like, what does that mean? A freak could be, some kid who listens to the Misfits, or, what is it? It's that neurodivergence, and how do you struggle with that? And how does that impact your life? And later when you're talking about the dating, like, how does that impact your dating life? So
that would have even been good to show some of her trying to date, trying to reach out to guys and being rejected, show some of that. Or even if it's just not rejection, but she feels she's rejected, she's reading it wrong, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
Just, the struggles that somebody deals with being neurodivergent. Another one is the brother. Benny kind of shows up like an asshole, and then he's gone, and then he comes back crying. And we were talking about that B story, and that B story can be that what's going on with Benny, right? Because maybe Benny's this guy who's emotionally distant, and like obviously he cares for his father, and if the father abused him in some way, maybe he hates his father, but it's one of those super confusing relationships where even if you hate that person for what he did to you, it's not somebody down the street that called you an asshole, it's somebody that raised you. So there's this confusion, this hatred, this scaredness, like, this uncertainty. And so you can bring him in, and even if he's gone and you don't want to have him in the picture, you can still bring that character into the conversations. Where's Benny? Why is Benny being such an asshole? And you can talk about what's going on with Benny and why he's dealing with what he's dealing with, and just bring him more throughout the middle portions, because his father's dying. He's going to feel some way. Maybe he does just check out and play computer games, but that's still a struggle. And it's still it's going to build frustration. Obviously, Helen is going to be like, why isn't he here? What's his deal? Because her way of dealing with this is to be there through it, and so she's probably going to be frustrated with him. And so you can bring him in conversations with the mom, even if you don't want him to be present. So that was another one that I had.
And to jump in real quick on that, Clint, the more you bring in Benny, then he's going to act as a foil or a mirror to Helen's arc, so that
Totally.
it's like reflection, although not necessarily they're not the same, so they're going to react at two different ways, and by highlighting one, you highlight the other.
Totally. One other thing that I had, a lot of other things I had, but one thing that I had was, it seems like Martina is explaining a lot of the medical issues that are going on in the script. And I wonder if it would just be more powerful to have a doctor kind of explain that, just because it's medical jargon and everything like that. And then you can have the response of the mother and daughter sitting there together, hearing this information and processing it, right? So there's that. By the way, I know I have a lot, but I love this story. I think it's amazing, and I'm just trying to give you everything I got because it's so powerful, and I want it to be the best that it can be. So I just want to preface it with that. So the I had a couple of them, like the Great Falls, the Country Skillet, the Hill. Those are things that, and what was the other one? The Heroic Measures. Like those definitely came back a lot. And again, just a thesaurus, do you want life support? Do you want resuscitation? Different ways of phrasing that same thing. And then let's see, the montages. I would cut down a lot on those. The montages to me seemed like scenes. Like there was a paragraph in the montage, and it was like all the things that happened. And usually when you see a montage, it's like this happened and it's super short, and then it's the next shot, right? Because these are series of events that happen, and some of them, like the trip, I'm not sure why that was a montage, that usually the montage is like showing the father declining or something. Like if you wanted to do the montage, it could be them coming together at the end and being a close family that last time before the father dies or something like that. But it just seemed like the montages were a little bit too wordy. On page 50, you mentioned the Facebook update, and maybe I'm wrong, but that was the first time that I recognized hearing anything about that. And when you wrote about it, that's something that's been going on the entire time. And I think that as part of your rewrite, that should go back to the beginning. You should have that as part of what's going on the entire time that you're doing these updates. And then maybe your mom could get mad at you. Why are you updating about this? And then you can have this conversation about, this is my journal, so that could be another story point that comes up. And then I know I said a lot of things, two more things. there's a lot of fades to, cuts to, fades to black. Usually the fade to black is going to be at the end. You can just go straight into your just the next scene, you know, just your next scene heading, and then whoever the editor is will dissolve to it or fade to it or whatever they choose to do, or however they choose to transition. And then the last thing that I have was about the spreading of the ashes. I really did love the voiceover that you had at the end. It's just the action description said, which I think this has come up a couple times when people were saying that it was a place of significance, right? And that goes back to what Morgan was saying earlier about it reading like a stage play and not being that visual. That place of significance, nobody watching the story will know that that's a place of significance. It will just look like a place that she's sitting to do that. The only way that you can make that a place of significance is maybe you introduce that when they go on the family trip, or they talk about it somewhere where they remember the good times and how wonderful it was to go walk with them there. You want to introduce that place because that's going to be the end of the film, and that's where your father's resting place is, right? So that was a lot. I appreciate you guys for listening. And right on.
And I'm not commenting on this, just happens to be said this after you, Clint. I was thinking it the whole time and stuff. I heard this thing recently from a well-respected writer. I wish I could remember the name, but I don't. That said, lots of times when you're given notes, this is kind of for Heather, like lots of times the symptom is right. Like that they're saying, there's something I don't like about this relationship or whatever. Like lots of times that's right, but the solution is almost always wrong or different. So it's like, but take the note behind the note. Like, why are people thinking this? Why are they feeling this? And different stuff like that. So, and then you find the best way to answer that within your script. Sorry, go ahead, Kat.
I was saying it's important to know that, you know, it's a very personal story, but as a script writer or a playwright or, you know, any type of writer, you have the permission to modify it so that you don't have to make it exactly the way it happened. You're trying to pull in it to make it a little larger than what's actual life. And so when you look at those suggestions as, if I'm going to write a play from scratch, I'm going to use this as my background, but I'm going to make it a little different to enhance the script. So, you know, give yourself permission to vary from what actually happened in order to make it more dramatic.
Sure.
Yeah, and knowing that
Roxzane
you
said
know all those things in your life. Yeah, that you know all those things in your life. So there's some stuff that you know happened that isn't coming out on the page, the audience won't know. And you were saying that Roxzane said a similar thing in the
Just in the chat, yeah. Very similar, yeah.
You can take
I
artistic
think it depends on what your goal is for your screenplay too. I mean, if you're writing it for yourself or friends and family and that kind of thing, and you don't have any desire to have any big plans for it, then you can do whatever you want. But you know, of course, the golden rule of screenwriting is, or with any film, you know, it's visual media, is to show, no, don't tell, like we've all said and heard a bunch of times. Like the only specific thing that I can think of that hasn't been mentioned is when John fell, right? We just heard secondhand, Mom said that John fell. Well, that's certainly something that we would want to see, or maybe not want to see, you know, but should be shown instead, because that's a pretty dramatic thing right there that should be shown. And regarding with what if you're writing a screenplay and you want to sell it, one thing you have to know up front is that it's going to get changed after you sell it. If somebody wants to do anything with it after you sell it, it's no longer yours, it's theirs, and you have to come to peace with that immediately. And the reason I think about that is because there's a ton of description in this screenplay about what everyone is wearing and where they're sitting and that kind of stuff. It's very specific, and it's great because it's visual and it lets you build it in your head. But if this screenplay were to get anywhere close to being produced, all that's going to go away, and it's going to be in the hands of the production designer. It's going to be in the hands of the art department. It's going to be in the hands of your director of photography. It's going to be in the hands of your director. It's all going to change to something that will translate, as good as they can make it. And of course, the director is going to have his vision of his own anyway. So, not to mention the 4 or 5 writers whom they might hire to punch it up after they buy it from you. So I guess a short version of what I'm saying is all of these very, very detailed things. I heard it described once as the director's job is to direct and the writer's job is to write. So as a writer, we're not trying to direct a scene. In other words, like if you have the scene in your mind where we're going to come from this angle and we're going to come across here, and we're going to pan right, and then we're going to show this scene, I think directors hate that because they feel like you're directing from as a writer, and they're look at that as, well, that's not your job. You're the writer. I'm going to direct it the way I want to direct it. So I'm just kind of tapering off here, I guess.
Well,
but
one of
was
the
a part
first
of
things
it.
you said,
Yeah.
what is the goal of the script? And I thought that was a good segue for us to bring Heather in. She has been, and I admire her ability to be able to stay quiet and be here and have the ability to unmute and talk. And she's been able to say and hear all this feedback that, of course, as we all say, all coming from a good place, all a place of we wanting the script that we know is so personal, emotional to be the best it can. And we love you and want the best for all of it. So thank you for your patience, Heather, and please come back and let's make this a discussion. And thank you everybody for all the great insights and stuff that you guys shared with her. So Heather,
Hi.
are you there?
Yes, I'm
If you need a
here.
moment, it's okay. Oh, okay.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
So let me just explain something to you about the journal and the
Sure.
Facebook post. The journal is separate from the Facebook post. When he
Mhm.
first got diagnosed, we actually kept it in the family for like a couple of months. We didn't tell anybody because Mom was so scared to tell people and accept help. We decided to do everything ourselves. She was overwhelmed. She didn't want to talk about it. She was scared of getting judged or whatever. But I kept everything in a journal, and that journal stuff actually went on a blog that I kept, and the blog was called, what was the blog called? Through a Daughter's Eyes, Watching Dad's Valley of Cancer, and that sits on Blogger as of this day. And I finally was like, oh my goodness, my mom's getting so tired, and so I put it on Facebook and decided to get my mom some help, and then people from like the church all over town, because my mom was very popular in Raymond at the time because she was helping everybody with their family history and such, and everybody wanted to help her. So she had dozens of friends like help her.
That's wonderful.
And so that's why there's multiple friends in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And as far as my brother, I had gone away at the beginning of that October for a little 5-day rest because I was exhausted, and he actually moved out. I was gone, and I came back to find him moved out, and he didn't come back until the night that my dad had died, after my dad had died. So that's the clarification there.
And that'll be good to see, like that you show that you needed a break and you went away, and then show that you come back and he's just gone. Like, and you're.
Yeah, I get that. I really wanted to expand on that, but I had written like nearly 20 pages in 2 days. So
Yeah.
Again, a first draft, a second draft.
yeah, I do want to actually make this into like a film or something, but I don't really want to sell it to anybody. I want to have creative control over it because I don't want people like turning it into something it's not.
I think like Jeremy was saying, like if you're gonna make it yourself, then yeah, you can do whatever you want, however you want to do it.
Right.
I would, if you want to do that, I would definitely change McDonald's to maybe get like a family restaurant that because you will end up with a cease and desist letter for a lot of money. My buddy tried to put Nikes into a movie. I think it was like a 3-second snapshot, and they wanted $60,000 for it.
Yeah, I get that.
I tried to use Surge. They wouldn't even let me use Surge from the 90s.
Like the old school drink.
Yeah.
I thought some of the legal stuff is like if you're using it how it's supposed to be used and not in a bad light,
Yeah.
then you could.
Yeah, I
Totally.
can barely hear you, Jacob.
Yeah, you got quiet.
He's in China. It's really far away.
Yeah.
I
Well, you
did
know,
turn it down
this whole
because
stream. Oh, sorry.
when someone else was talking, like, you know how it shows the yellow box around you when you become the main one? Like, someone else is talking and I do a little comment and it would show me as the main one. And I'm like, no, I want to still just be the minor where you hear my voice and still see them. But so
Yeah, and I
that's why I
do
tried
want to
turn it down.
expand upon how he was abusive, because he was very abusive. I've got a memory from when I was a teenager of him choking me because I got in his way when we were playing pool. And that's one of the things. I've got journal entries that I want to go through. I just didn't have the time to do it. I had to get this draft done.
So
Okay, so
when
you do plan on putting that in the script.
when Clint had said make it, get personal, well, you don't have to get, I think get personal, get it all out and write it for yourself first, so you get all of it out there, so that you don't censor yourself. If you write it just for yourself, knowing that you're not sharing it with anyone, then you're going to share the things that maybe you need to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got journals
totally
of
agree with that.
entries where he was abusive. Trust me, I have them. I just don't have the time to go through them until I'm done school for the semester.
Yeah. And then afterwards, you might find, I think you have so much courage, you would be okay with sharing it. That's what I think.
I did share a bit about how he was, because I actually wrote an essay about caregiving. I don't know if anybody read Star Trek Quarterly in the spring in April. It's an essay called Caregiving, A Journey of Grace and Healing that I'm happy to share. It's about how I helped care for my dad, John Robert Cameron Sr. I'll use his real name. When he was dying of cancer, I compared it to a Star Trek episode, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode called The Wire. So
That's the most Heather thing that I think I've heard.
There better be some of those in there. You don't have to say Star Trek, but be like,
Somehow that's a Star Trek reference.
Yes,
Oh,
put
man.
some sort of
yeah,
reference in there.
like I remember, I don't even know if this made it into a blog entry, but I do vaguely remember sitting with Dad when my mom would take Bobby to do things in Lethbridge, because we couldn't take him really anywhere. I remember sitting and watching Netflix and Cops and Star Trek with him when he would sit in his recliner, and like I'd make him watch Star Trek and other things just because he had really no choice of what we watched. I controlled the remote.
And I find it interesting too, Heather, that if you're gonna write it for filming, then things like that. It doesn't have to be Star Trek, but it could be something that makes that character. We can distinguish Helen from Amy down the street, because otherwise it could have been me in that scene watching my mother die. But when you add in those extra details, the pictures in the room of Helen, what Helen's room looks like, what is she interested in? Those kind of things help us get invested in Helen too.
We weren't exactly the happiest of families. And I do vaguely remember when he was getting really rude and belligerent, I said, you knock it off right now or else I'm going to leave and let you crawl over the house because you can't walk.
But Heather, did you hear the note in that from Kat, what she was trying to specify?
Like
the end of it?
distinguish what Helen was like.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I don't really know how to describe what I was like.
Just
Well,
like
again,
a
she said
life-size
she brought up-
statue of William Shatner. Your room.
No, like I remember I didn't really have any distinguishable things in my room at the time. I just lived there and functioned and barely slept. And
But even that is a character description, right? Like if you're so emotionally invested in other things that you don't even really care about your space, that's a huge part for character development, right?
And if that's shown like visually.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you look at The Machinist, right? Where he was just like eaten away and consumed, like he lived in the shack,
what's The Machinist?
The Machinist, it's an older movie with Christian Bale. I think he weighed like 90 pounds in the movie.
Oh,
Yeah, he lost
that's
a
a
lot.
frightening weight.
Yeah. Well, when you see it,
Be
it's
that weight.
But it fleshed out his character, that the way that they showed, the lack of stuff.
yeah. And that's totally character development. The absence of stuff is character development, and it's there for a reason, right? And obviously
And
that would be there
genuine.
for you, where you are so caught up in this grief you know, or whatever transition period's going on in your life, that like decorating and making a nice, quaint, happy room is not a priority, you know?
And Benny's
Yeah.
room could look very different, you know, if he's super organized, or if he's super messy, or if he's, you know, whatever that shows us how his character is different than Helen's character.
Yeah, I
Can I-
suppose I could, just, I'm not very good at character development.
I think
And
you did
at the
for a
risk-
first, right? So you're gonna probably rewrite this maybe 5 or 6 times. So for a first write, like there is a lot of really, really good stuff there. And like when we read these scripts and you see that they've put something way back and they started planting these seeds, you know, really early in the script, that rarely comes out in a first draft. That second, third, fourth, fifth. Oh yeah, that would be cool to insert that so that I can carry it through, you know? So you're going to have, I mean, it's going to look totally different when you get it. And you're going to vet out these characters and have these conversations and then add more details and take away and clean up the writing. I mean, yeah, you got writing is rewriting is what they say, you know? So you did
Yeah,
a great job.
Jeremy, you
By
wanted
the
to say
way.
something?
I was going to say, well, at the risk of making, I hate to make anybody cringe, but especially if you're talking about abuse and that kind of thing, especially if this script gets any darker or heavier than it is, what it really needs is some comedy. And the reason I say that is because it's kind of in conjunction with what we're saying is that there aren't any two-dimensional people. Everyone is three-dimensional. And whenever I'm watching something, I don't know, the hallmark to me when I'm watching a show, one of the hallmarks of either I don't know, not as good as it could be writing in you know, I'm talking about professional Hollywood stuff, right? Which is often not that good anyway. But if a character, if they never have any, if I'm watching a show and there's never a single moment where anybody makes a joke, and this could be the most serious show ever, it could be a complete tearjerker and everything like that, but we don't live our lives that way. Nobody can live their life. You can't go, you know, 2 weeks without having any levity of any kind or something like that. And when an audience watches a show of any kind of show, there's got to be breaks. There's got to be some play. You can't just pound people down continuously for an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be a break in there. Got to breathe, right? Marvel movies have taken this probably too far at this point. We know there's a whole bunch of action and then there's a wisecrack, right? You can even, I mean, it sounds sacrilegious, but you can, if somebody wanted to, they could take the bare bones of this story and turn the whole thing into a comedy if they wanted to. I'm not saying that anybody wants to or anybody should, and I'm pretty sure that you don't want to. I'm just saying
No,
that's
I
always,
don't, because there's not really, I don't see anything that was comedic about it, not even his brother. His brother was as much
I'm
an
not
asshole as his
advocating
best
for that
friend.
at all, but there's got to be, the audience has to be able to live within that space that you've created. And to be able to live within that space, there has to be an up and down and a flow. And if you're going to bring it up at all, there has to be something that's not, you know, completely dark. So it could take the form of, again, brother, if we write something in for the brother that maybe didn't happen at all, but, you know, like, I don't know if it was Jacob, I'm throwing you under the bus, that was saying that maybe the brother could be a little bit funnier and sarcastic or something like that. That might all it need to be. Or, you know, I think of, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but I think of Fried Green Tomatoes, which is an older movie, right? But everybody loved it. Wasn't exactly a guy's movie. It was more, can I still say chick flick nowadays? I don't even know. But you know, that's more of the type of movie it was. But I liked it because it had some characters in there that were freaking hilarious. And it was a weeper, you know, at the very end, I think. No spoilers or anything, but it was a great movie because it had ups and downs, and all those characters, all of them had sort of a sense of humor. So it's not something that you can't do for a topic and a screenplay like this. It can even be done with just pure gallows humor, because if you've ever been in a family like my family, we've lost people. And sometimes you get to the point where it's so dark that you can't help but
Well,
joke about
you know what?
I put
There's
a joke on
there's
my
a
dad's
video-
What else
tombstone.
can you do?
There's a video,
I
like
was
when we
seeing-
went to Great Falls, I made videos. I made a lot of videos. There's a video of me talking to my dad about what he did in London in the 70s as an oil worker. And
Oh.
he walked around and it was just so funny. And I think
I think memories are a great way to do that. You know, when
Yeah.
I lost my father, you know, even the moments when, you know, he was kind of a dick, you kind of look back on it with like a humorous nostalgia of like, oh, that was totally him, you know? And that's not expressly like, ha ha ha, comedy. It's more like endearing lightheartedness, you know, of, oh yeah, that's just the way that he was, you know?
It's
Well,
camaraderie.
maybe like he did spend some time in the Middle East. I wonder if I could do a flashback of him partying in the Middle East and make it funny.
I had a
My dad's
teacher-
funeral was so funny. It can be done.
What's up, Megan? Or sorry, Morgan, what were you saying?
I was gonna say I had a screenwriting teacher that always said you want to make them laugh, cry, or scream. If you do 2 of the above, you have a great movie. If you do all 3, you have a killer.
And Roxzane, you had something you want to add?
Steel Magnolias.
It's totally, it's just a question for Heather. In your household, was there never, ever a moment of laughter? Ever?
Oh,
Like,
I have to think
everybody's
hard
family,
about
there's-
that.
You know, there's always a moment of lightness. Right?
Maybe
Even
when
in
we
the
were
darkest
little.
times. Pardon?
Maybe when we were little and we did some weird vacations.
I know where the lightness came from, Frodo.
Yeah.
Oh, Frodo was such a disastrous little shit.
But you can still use that for comedy.
There you go.
There you go.
You know, he could fart when you guys are in there and in like the middle of a serious moment, and then you're like, "Are you kidding me, dude? We're like trying to figure out what we're doing with my father at his funeral, and you just fart." You know?
Yeah, like
Some-
my dad's nickname for Frodo was shithead.
There you go.
Put that in there. That needs to be in there. You know, because he's like choking down a cigarette, dying of cancer, and he's like, "Come here, shithead." You know, that's super endearing, I think. You know, that's real character building.
And then remember when we read The Body, the Buffy episode, and that episode is like extremely, extremely sad,
Yeah.
like the entire episode. But there's a moment in the beginning where it cuts to a flashback and they're like teasing each other and they're laughing, having a good time. And then it cuts back to the drama and it makes that dramatic moment even sadder because we're reminiscing on that happy moment.
Yeah.
Yep. Amplifier.
Without
I know
it,
I'm just telling
it's
one
like
from my
if you're,
personal-
it's like, sorry, when, it's
ahead.
like if you're in, anything extreme for too long, you become numb to it.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
want to have that break from it so that you can feel it again.
Yeah, I know I need to work on it. I really do want to.
No,
I also
for
always
sure.
tell my students, we don't cry reading the obituary because we don't know those people. You can't assume that people know your story. And so it's always good to like show us who you are and who these people are, these characters are in the good moments so that when the bad hits, it really hits us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah, I totally will expand upon it because I do want to film this someday when I get the resources.
Awesome.
Well,
And
low
you know,
budget-
Story, like to have, oh, we're all talking again at once.
I was
But what
thinking
is-
about
what is-
I was thinking about who I would want to play my father if there were ever celebrities invited to be in this, and I would say Jason Isaacs.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go Momoa on that one.
I thought you were gonna say
Jason
Vicki.
Isaacs really resembles him physically. Oh, he's a little thinner, but he resembles him physically, and I think he would do a very good job.
The guy from Star Trek.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, really? Oh, I was
Yeah,
just
You're
kidding.
now, oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but he's also a Malfoy.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. He just would do a very good job,
hmm.
I think, with the role.
I
But
thought
oh,
he
by
was
the
in-
way, my mom was watching. She was watching the table read, and she said, "Thank you to everyone, and you all did a wonderful job."
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
My mom is Martha Nickel, by the way.
She the one that commented?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Martha. Thank you for
Thank you,
watching.
Martha,
Thank you for letting us read your story. I know that was
and
personal.
all your
Thank you
support.
to Heather. You've
Any
raised
other
a
feedback that
wonderful
comes to-
lady, and we enjoy her all the time.
Any other feedback for me to my face?
No, I think we gave it.
I'm
You're
very
proud of who
accepting
you
of
are.
it.
Just show them,
I'm-
just don't be afraid of showing them who you are. And that's all.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
Yeah,
share
just
those
go deep.
things,
Go
those
deep.
those experiences that happened in those memories. Just yeah, write those ones in. Write something in, not just talking about, but showing it happen. Get used to writing those things, and then you can decide which of those you want in, or if you want them at all. Like if you want to expand on just even coming up with something totally different, but gives the spirit of it.
Yeah, I've got to get better at expanding. It was just a rush job.
We all do. That's all of us, everybody,
But, I mean,
everybody who's
that's one good
writing.
thing.
Right,
We
but
all
for a
covered
rush
the-
job, it was really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forced her to. I
I've
told her
read
"You
5
have to do
fifth
it.
drafts that were
Not till
not this
Tuesday."
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I-
good thing for
you
deadlines.
just-
It gets
I
it
wouldn't be
done.
able
Oh,
to
why
write
are the
things.
pets named those names?
Is Jacob named
Cedric
after
was
Jacob?
named after Cedric Sneer on the Raccoons. It's a Canadian television show.
I remember that. Yeah, Jacob.
Named after Jacob Patrick from Table Read Tuesdays.
Oh, no, Jacob, I don't remember. I think Bobby named, or my brother named Jacob.
Oh, it's his actual names for the pets.
And then Frodo, when he was a baby, Frodo was born as a runt, and he was brown like Frodo Baggins' hair off the Lord of the Rings.
Cute.
So
At some point in his life, did he have to take a journey to take a ring?
Frodo recently died like a month or 2 ago, and he's buried in my mom and stepdad's garden.
That was
So
his
his journey is in the Undying Lands, I guess. He's gone.
The
And
Rainbow
could you
Road.
actually have pets in the hospital?
Raymond Hospital was a very interesting place. Like the scene with after Dad was taken to the hospital, like that was the psych ward, just being in the hospital. There wasn't really any security. They really didn't care. They all knew my family, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna let him do whatever he wants. He's gonna die anyway. So what are you gonna do? You can't say no to a dying man.
Mm.
They just
I did
kind
have
of
that
let him
thought too
take a
while
few
reading it, yeah.
liberties, and they really didn't care. They let us visit like at all hours. They let my mom visit at all hours. They really didn't care. It's a town of Mormons. What are you gonna do? They just did not care.
Allow the dogs.
Hey, Roxzane, is that Samwise? Since we're speaking of Frodo, is that Samwise Gamgee?
No, this is Foxy. She was my dad's. So she was my dad's
Aw.
little shadow. She stayed with him the entire time while he was going through his journey. And then I inherited him after. But yeah, we got to take her into the hospital too. She went in to see him while he was in palliative care.
Aw.
She was
Yeah,
a very
palliative
loyal
care-
comfort to my dad.
Palliative care isn't a nice place to be, is it? It's kind of scary and intimidating, and yeah.
We were in a hospital that was great. It was a small town hospital too. It was Lamont, and they had a great big suite. They had a bed for my stepmom to stay with them. They had a little kitchenette. We had parties. It was lovely.
Yeah, but the food in the Raymond Hospital wasn't that good, so I was always bringing meals, and
But we
didn't
brought
really
food
get
in.
They have
We had
better
family
hospital
that
food?
brought food. And
I think
Foxy.
in the last few days, all he wore was a diaper and an IV, and was just in this little bit of a coma. So he wasn't really there for the last couple days of his life. I very much remember it.
I hope that you found some comfort and some healing and
Oh,
some
I did.
catharsis from writing this.
Oh,
I did. I mean, I forgave him like when I was 24, but to actually tell him that, like as I wrote in the script, it was very nice. And my brother does not know about this, so I'm sure I'm going to get crap when he does, and the friends don't know about this. That's why I use pseudonyms. The only one who knew about this, that I was doing this, was my mom and stepdad, and I just said, don't tell your friends or my brother.
Yeah, it takes courage to share things that even if it had nothing to do with your life, it was something that you just came up with. It takes courage to share that for sure.
Oh, I actually put this together based on the entries from that blog I mentioned.
I did think that, and that's what I was going to say, but it's because I already knew that I know too much rather than like just a normal reader, where this feels like the first transition piece of like the first step going from the blog into a screenplay. Like you kind of got like halfway there, but it's still too tied to that. And it still needs to become its own thing.
I taught myself how to write screenplays from looking up things on Google. I've never really taken a course.
And on that note, I know we talked about a little bit, and there's some challenges from the
the fade-in formatting screwed up, and I saw that. I swore.
Yeah, that you had like, well, this is good that this is now like centered, but these would be kind of like left justified over there.
Yeah.
As we discussed. And so I know you know that to you, but
Oh yeah, and then on I think it started at page 43. It might have started at page 42. The dialogue format was a little bit off.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh no, because I went through that thing like 50 times checking, and I was like, oh, fade-in sucks.
Yeah.
I did want to say, when it says voice, I think you only use voice before the character is introduced, but after that you put their name, and then if it's off screen, put off screen. If it's a voiceover, put VO. Sorry, not off screen, put OS. If it's a voiceover, put VO.
Yeah.
So if like they're in the room, but you can't see them, then it's OS. And if it's like you're speaking, I don't know, like you're giving a narrative over something, then it's VO. So that'll help too, to clarify it when someone's reading your script.
Vicki, I just noticed you're wearing like a collared shirt and have your hair slicked back. You kind of look like him now. Oh my God. Did you dress that way for the show? Oh my God.
Just say yes, Vicki. Just say yes.
It's like looking at him. Holy crap.
One of the things that I noticed when it came to the dialogue is I know that this is a Canadian-based story, and one of the things that I didn't get out of the dialogue was nobody said a boot, and nobody said, "Hey, buddy."
Nobody said
pasta.
pasta.
Just kidding. That's a Canada joke. That's a Canada joke.
It was my great grandfather that immigrated from Scotland, so nobody really had a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
I didn't
talking about the Canadian accent.
Canadian accent.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
What you going on about?
I'm just kidding.
Well, we didn't really...
I liked those Canadian details though, because
he's just joking.
We didn't have Canadian accents. He was born in Tabor.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a boot.
I know.
I must not live in the right part of Canada.
Every week.
No, I went to a wrestling camp when I was younger, and there was some Canadian team that came down there, and they all they had to put on their wrestling boots, which I thought was pretty funny. Instead of the wrestling shoes, they were wrestling boots.
Are Canadians supposed to sound a specific way?
No,
there are some cliches.
They sound like Americans, just nicer.
They sound more European, and
say
I've been
A
told
every
that.
once in a while.
I do know some Canadians who do say a boot.
Really?
So
Are they must be from the
Are they
eastern
east?
side then. Yeah, I'm
Are they
thinking
from the
east.
east?
Again, yeah, all throughout the different countries, people talk different in different areas. It's not.
There you go. That's your humor right there. Hey there, fella. Let's we need to talk about your dad there, eh?
I think if this happens in Canada, then you're legally you have to write it in English and French, right?
I don't legally have to do anything with that.
We should have got a French translation side by side.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed themselves.
Yeah, that was fun. That was
Thank you.
really deeply personal for sure. I mean, that was powerful stuff. You got the outline, you're good to go.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Look
definitely
forward to
have
your
some
second
work
draft.
to do.
Your
I
third
have some
draft, your
ideas of what I can put to make it funny, like a scene like when he's in Great Falls talking about the Middle East, reminiscing about partying with sheiks and shahs, which he told me vaguely, and make that up a little bit, embellish.
There you go.
And
'Cause that
while
would
you're
be
in it,
funny.
on your second draft, like as you're writing the scene, a different memory might come to yourself at that moment.
Well, he
or
never
something
told me
that
much
would work
about
for the
that, but
scene,
I know
even if
he
it's
was
not
in
real.
Iran. Because I've got a
Well,
document that said he was.
Have you seen the movie Big Fish?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
gosh,
Yeah,
we
we
did a
read that
table read
shit.
of Big Fish
My
before you came
favorite.
to us. And
reread
Jacob
it.
was the star.
I
Yeah.
forced it upon everyone.
Or
That's a
like
great-
another one that's super funny that could be of use to you is it's called Secondhand Lion.
Mm,
It's
really
Never heard of it.
hilarious. And it's
Same kind of deal.
yeah, he like it without ruining anything. It's like this kid comes to meet his grandparents who tell these like far out tall tales. And so it kind of flashes back from like where they're at to this real story, and then you're trying to figure out if it's real or not the whole time. It's super funny. It's got some serious stuff in there. Heather, I know that you would enjoy it. It's totally worth 2 hours of your time. I promise you'll love it.
You should message me the name of the movie because I'll forget
Yeah,
it.
what was it called again?
Secondhand Lion.
Yeah.
Like
I
a
concur.
so,
Like you bought a lion secondhand?
yeah.
Okay.
Lion.
It's got this cast is friggin' fantastic. So don't
Yeah,
even worry about
Robert Duvall, Michael Caine.
Tyra Sedgwick.
Yeah.
Mike, yeah. Haley Joel Osment. Josh Lucas. I don't know who that is.
Gosh,
Good
Lucas.
movie. It's super funny.
He's the voice of Home Depot.
The voice of
Who is? Haley Joel Osment.
Josh Lucas.
I went into Home Depot one time and I said, I feel like a doer. I'm going to get more done. And they were like, what? Can you just leave? But I'm
They
weird
didn't
like
give you a job?
huh?
So they didn't give you a job? For a
No,
hammer?
no. They said you can take your charm and get out.
You guys are all doers, and I think we may be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody wants to, write any additional feedback to me, you can reach me on my social medias at Heather Leigh Cameron on Facebook, or Heather Leigh Freelancer on Facebook, or the Storm and Latter-day Saints on YouTube, or heather.lee.cameron@gmail.com. My social media links are on my YouTube, and I'm so grateful that everybody enjoyed participating in this story, and I'm so glad it's out in the world.
Yeah.
First of many.
Job. That was amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for helping bring Heather's story to life. Have a great week, and let your loved ones know that you love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love my loved ones, and I do love those who are in this story, and I'm glad I was able to show that love by bringing this out.
And thank you for Jeremy,
Yes.
Yeah.
coming to join
Yes,
us.
welcome, Jeremy. You know what? Like,
We hope you'll come back.
quick note, like, honestly, my mom said you sounded like my dad's former best friend. Like, my God, you really did. That Englishman, holy crap.
You wrote that really well too. I thought, and yeah.
Like, you sounded exactly
kid
like
is very
him.
Those were good lines for you. They were. Thank you.
I could just
Thanks for having me.
visualize, remember him just saying those words to me. My God.
From Texas to England right there.
Yeah.
And we appreciate
Anyway,
everybody's
well done, everyone. I love how well you did. I appreciate you so much. You're all amazing.
Yeah.
And that we'll say good night.
And
Good
we
night.
love you.
Thank you. Love you all.